Live right now. All right.
Everybody's back to school and back to normal. What's going on?
Oh man, it's good. It's all politics are local. We know it's September 9th, 2022. It is the vote. It is that second weekend, that second Friday. And yeah, man, school first week of school in many places. If you're a charter school, it's your third. Ha ha. No, I'm kidding. But we are back, and we are and the Tonight Show is going to be pretty good. We have on at 6 o'clock. We have
Well,
Dieury.
tonight's show is going to be excellent. We always have excellent shows.
Absolutely, absolutely. And at 6, we have Dieury Dumas from Think Tank Democrat. And at 7 o'clock on the vote, we're going to have Larry Hamm on. Larry Hamm is going to be talking about a lot of the stuff with Jackson and Water. We're going to be talking about privatization. We're going to be talking a lot about that tonight from an activist point of view. And at 8 o'clock, we have the State of Hip Hop with DJ Rhino featuring Keesha Eure of the Office of Violence Prevention. And she's going to be talking about 24 hours of peace, changing the culture, reflections on a good day. 24 hours of peace was last week. Excellent. And she, part of that sponsorship is the Office of Violence Prevention in Newark. We know Queen Latifah, I love you. I'm just letting you know that, right? I love you.
You know,
You're
love is an
my
action word.
queen.
Did you show up and tell her that you loved her?
I mean, they couldn't let me. I was trying to get to her, right? I was like, I love you, Queen Latifah. But
Her
man,
security was like,
they didn't
sit
let
back.
me. Right. So I mean, they didn't let me. So I was trying, right? But I just have to say, right, when people talk about the queen, I got scared for a second, but like the queen died. I was like, no, not queen, not Latifah. I got scared. I went on and I looked. I was like, oh, okay.
And
Latifah's
I
good.
love it. And what kind of security details she got? They just stand there and they just give you the
Oh
eye
man,
like,
look, man, I knew I couldn't, hit my game like I wanted to hit my game to Queen Latifah because I mean, she took my heart when I saw her and set it off. I don't know, maybe that's crazy, right? Given the character, right? And she's shooting people, all the other stuff. But I'm like, yo, Queen, that's mine. Now, really, she got me in Unity when she did you.
UNITY,
Yeah,
UNITY.
yes, that was
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. So we've got a good show planned. We're starting off with the Harry Dumas from Think Tank Democrat. Can you tell us? Can you start off by telling us what Think Tank Democrat is? And before you get into it, you know, I'm starting this off, but I'm going to jump out, right? And then Chris Randall, who's right here. Let me introduce. Our Chris Randall is right here.
What's going on, people?
All right, and so so as soon as I jump off, right, Chris Randall's going to be jumping on to continue the conversation with you. But the show's going to be a really good show tonight. And Donna, you're awesome. I like your skills. You got mad skills.
I tell Chris he better. Me and Chris are going to have a discussion at 6:30 about etiquette and answering your phone. But let's get to
All right, because you called and Chris didn't answer his phone. Is that what you're
right.
saying, right? Okay,
That's right.
I heard about that. As a matter of fact, I saw him look at his phone and then he started walking the other way. So I just assumed he was going to answer the phone, but I saw him get the call and walk away.
And here I
That's
got
right.
two numbers. Okay, we'll talk about it. But is our guest in the background?
The guest is not in the background,
Let let
but
Chris come on because I'm getting a text and just let me check some things out. If he's having a problem, and let Chris come in because I see something in my text box. So let me check it and I'll be right back. Okay.
so Chris, hold on, let me lower the standing desks so Chris can be on.
Now you're getting height jokes.
Yeah.
It's all bad. It's
All
all
right.
bad.
So Chris, man, how are you?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
Wait. So if you need to make this lower,
I'm good. Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right.
What's up? Where'd Donna go?
Oh, she just jumped out of the whole thing.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. So, Chris, man, what's going on?
I'm good, man. It's just a lot going on in the public square. I think that there's going to have to eventually evolve in this conversation that we're going to have tonight about water protection, water agency. It's going to have to be a conversation about what we mean by sovereignty. What do we mean by access?
And I think that Dieury Dumas is in Think Tank Democrat. And when he's doing Think Tank Democrat, it really is to try to get people to think more about policies and the things that we do?
Well, yeah, I mean, the reality is that a lot of the conversations that we have, are about resources and access to resources are always a question of what communities have the power to determine who they are, what we mean when we say community, et cetera, right? And those things are going to be preeminent conversations, right? Because it's all about not only what do you want, but do you have the ability to protect what you want, to dictate what you want?
And,
right?
and what does that mean in terms of like, are there really a lot of Black think tanks? Like, what does that even mean? Like,
well,
what is a think tank, and why are those things important for Black people?
Well, I think the larger question is really around lobbying, right? And how do you advocate for your community? How do you determine what you think is best policy for your community, et cetera, et cetera? And that's hopefully some stuff that I hope we can get into with our guests. I think they finally came. What's up, brother? How you feeling?
Hi, I'm good, and you?
I'm good,
Hi.
sir. Good.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, there we go, everybody. Well, this is one good thing about live radio, live TV. You don't get to fix your mistakes and things like that, because just to let you know, we are all the way live. I had to go in the background, bring Dieury on now. Dieury, you're here, and we're talking about,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and why you're with us today?
Yes. Sorry for being late. I was on the street and I was on the radio in Haiti. I just had to talk about my people in Haiti, about the activities. It's getting pretty crazy right now. I did not have time to fix anything. Anyway, so I'm pretty busy. My name is Dumas, and my organization is DemoKrat.
Well, let
This
me
is
stop. Let me stop you, Brother Dumas, right there. Because I appreciate you, and I really appreciate what you just said. You was talking to on a Haitian radio station, and you finished up there, and you came right here. So, audience, just know that this brother is out here doing the work. So breathe and go ahead and keep talking. I just wanted you to be okay.
All right. Yes. Thank you again. As you can see, again, this is a live broadcast. I did not have to finish up a little bit because my folks in Haiti, they was on the street also putting some flyers, getting folks ready to let them know that our organization that's gonna be for that's gonna be 7 times, like in 7 years, back to back, we're doing these activities. As you know, in Haiti, things are pretty messy right now, but the young people are doing all they can to try to save what is left of my country, Haiti. My organization is TTD Think Tank DemoKrat. This is a youth organization. We do different conferences, different meetings to help the youth not going to gangs. As you know by now, there's a lot of violence, gang-related activities. The youth, they do not have any role model or anyone to watch over them because the situation is pretty messy, and I am not happy about it. And as you can heard, like 2 or 5 months ago, they kidnapped like as many as 12 U.S. American citizen and 1 Canadian. And the situation is still being pretty bad. But September 15, this coming September, like next week, next Friday, gonna be the 16th. We're gonna have different conferences with the youth in different parts of the country. What we're gonna do, just like every country in the world, and I'm pretty surprised that many people does not know about the International Day of Democracy. This is a day that the union and the Interparliamentary Union, like it's a big organization with
So
all.
let me just pause right there. September 15th is the
Yes,
International Day of Democracy.
exactly,
And
exactly.
then and Chris, did you know that?
I've heard a few things about it. I mean, I
Okay.
think, I mean, that was just, I mean, it's been something that's been floated around in some other circles that I've been a part of. But yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. Yeah.
Okay. And as a result, your organization, Think Tank DemoKrat, you're going to do a program on that day to highlight. And you said to me when we talked the other night that you're concerned about the democracies throughout the world, and you want to get our young people engaged and involved of how important a democratic government is.
The International Day of Democracy should be a day of celebration for everyone every country that call themselves a democracy, or everyone who wanna live in a democratic world. It's a big surprise for me that, like, in different countries, especially in America, we do not do a big deal about it. We live in a democracy. We vote when we want, and we expect a lot from the government. No, we need to get active, not only for election, not only when there is a violence on the street, but we need to know more about democracy, the rule of law, and other component of democracy. Because democracy is not only a word or a philosophy; it's a structure. It's something very complex. There is a lot of ups and downs. There is a lot of in and out, just like the election, just like uh, the election system. It's a big machine. If you don't know the inside, I'm not gonna say deal, but if you don't know the inside of the structure, the way in and out, you're gonna left behind. And when the elections come up, and then now, like just said, what is going on in America? I don't want to get too much involved in politics in America, but we know January 6th, what happened in this country, and this is a fight. This is just like President Joe Biden said it. This is a fight to save what we know about America, the American democracy. If we lose this fight, the repercussion gonna be beyond America. And this is why the youth, especially the immigrant, me from Haiti, we're gonna be in the first line of the shooting, the destruction, the pain, everything that will come with it. Just like China, Trump want to be just like Xi Jinping or Putin or this guy in North Korea. This is his mentality. If we lose this fight,
So
my
let me,
friend, it's gonna
brother,
be.
I'm sorry. Let me just jump in because you said something. You said you don't want to get political, but without getting political, you wanted to point at the previous presidential election where everybody went to bed and they thought that one candidate was going to win, but in fact the other candidate, who might have been called at that time the underdog, won. And in a sense we could have said that that night America took democracy for granted. So is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And we need to be careful. They planning, they taking like five, they're gonna take as many years they need to plant the seed they want. That's what they're doing, like with the Supreme Court. Like we know in just one president like changed three three judges, but if he wanted, if he could change more of that. Therefore, this question of democracy, this question of voting, and we know in different states now they trying to take people's vote. They try just like what they did with the women rights. So they took a lot of rights from the women. They gonna keep on taking our rights of vote or civil liberties if we do not if we are not on the ball. On the ball, just like the Congressman Lewis said it, democracy it's not a game. It's something we need to do day after day.
And
And
let's unpack that. And you were talking about Congressman Payne last week, what he stated. And Chris, and I will say Chris and Brother Dumas, I'm gonna put this question to both of you because you said think tank is a youth organization, and I know, Chris, you work with students often. So in your groups, do your students, okay, do you have your students go, like, one thing that President Obama did is when he ran for election, he posed a question to the young people, and he had the young people go back and talk to their parents and ask them, why do you always vote this way, or why do you do things this way? Having now gone past the situation when the previous election, when Secretary Clinton did not win and President Trump did win, did you have an opportunity to talk to your students, to go back to their homes and ask their families, were they surprised, and yet why, and did they vote, and things like that? Did y'all engage them to engage their families to see, if perhaps some of their parents didn't go out and vote, and were they and if they didn't vote, why were they so shocked that something like that could happen? And I ask first, and then we'll go back to Brother Dumas.
I think for me, I think we were at a complicated historical moment. I think that I am responsible to a constituency of students who see the world in a radically different way than their predecessors do. Even my generation, I'm only I'm only sometimes 10 or 12 years older than the students that I'm teaching, right? But at the same time, I'm from a radically different historical moment. So when I was in high school, when I was leaving high school, going to college and all of that, it was the rise of the Obama era, all of that. People had a lot of a perception of the country that I think is radically different than the one they have now. And I think a lot of the kids, particularly in this area in the Northeast, like I'm from Baltimore, this is, New Jersey.
Okay, so let me put that in perspective. Who was the first? When you were of voting age, what's the first president you voted for?
Barack Obama.
Okay, so the first president that you voted for, Obama. And Brother Dumas, who was the first president you voted for?
Not a US citizen. I'm not a US citizen yet.
So, when you became the age of voting, what was the first person you would have been able to vote for?
Barack
if you
Obama.
had citizenship.
Yes.
It would have been who?
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama. Okay, so I'm talking to two men who, at a time when Brother Dumas, in your case, if you had the opportunity to vote, and Chris, when the first opportunity that you did have to vote, the options on the table were President Obama and who he ran against. So, and then 8 years goes by, and then you have the Clinton and Trump. So, and you're saying because of that, the dynamics, people just thought things were radically different and they didn't have to engage?
Well, no, it's not. It wasn't so much just that, right? But I think that this is a generation who has grown up with the language of things like mass incarceration, who has grown up at a different level of political consciousness than a lot of previous generations. I think maybe except for maybe the 1960s, right? This is the generation that's coming of age in the post-George Floyd world.
And so, Brother Dumas, with you, and you said you're not a U.S. citizen, but you are passionate about the democratic government, and one that we should know the importance of a democratic government. And I'm sure if you have the ability to vote, go out and cast your vote. So that day, that night when you went to bed, and that morning when you woke up, what was the reaction to your community and your family when everybody thought Hillary was a shoo-in and it didn't happen? What was the reaction?
Well, it was hell. It was hell, and we it was a nightmare. I'm not tell you the truth. I was kind of very angry about exactly what happened, because we had a sense of where things might go, and for us as immigrant, we heard everything he had to say about immigrants, especially for me, for for Asian people. But a lot of crazy Asians did vote for him. I A lot of crazy of them vote for him, and a lot of them still crazy. I told them that every day and every time, and I hope they're gonna watch this interview. But uh,
And let me but just I mean, you labeled the persons that you had some persons of Haitian descent that told you that they voted for Trump, and after he served for the 4 years, did you have an opportunity to go back and to see if they were of the same mind?
yeah, oh yeah. Even not we did not we started the conversation right away, especially when he said why we need those immigrant people from Haiti or Africa. They come from a whole I don't want to say the what exactly what I said. The conversation started right there, and a lot of us took to the street, especially after George Floyd assassination. So some of them did say they made a mistake, and some of them did. That's my whole point. People, you need to get involved to know exactly what's going on. It's not someone gonna come up and say, "Oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that," and you did not, and you are not following the news. You're gonna fall for the trap. Just like for democracy, you may not understand exactly what's going on. You need to get in the game. Not only, I'm not gonna say do something else because some people might be offended, but you need politics is a big part of your life. Democracy is your culture, is the way you're living. You should take like at least 1 or 3 hours to know exactly what's going on inside of your local communities, inside of the state, inside of the country, but especially what is going on outside of the US. A lot of my friends, a lot of people in America, they don't care about what's going on around the world. That's why some of them are getting mad because the US is spending a lot of money helping Ukraine. If we do not helping Ukraine with all the money we got, we're gonna be next. And since Putin gonna start take all those country in Europe is not gonna stop, we need to stop him right here, right now. And what they do, a lot of African descent, a lot of immigrant, they let Putin got into the mind criticizing America, America do this, America do that, but they never ask what Putin gonna offer. Will Putin offer free election? No. Will Putin gonna offer free press? No. Will Putin gonna offer like liberty of religion? No. They're not gonna offer those things. Is America is perfect? No. But we better live in America than anywhere else. I'm from Haiti. For me to go back to live in Haiti, it's gonna take a lot of things.
So
That's
so
gonna shock a lot of people.
and so
Yes.
bring us to September 15th on your day of international Democrat. On that day, September 15th, are you going to do activities that test some of the things that you just said? What if it was this way as opposed to this way?
Yes, we need to do that because the fight is there's a lot of propaganda that going in my country. There's a lot of people that taking to the street, a lot of violence. They blaming the US. That's another a question. And doing these activities, we're gonna face some of those people. They bringing Russian flag. They do this. We need to sit down to let them know. Okay, the things are not going well, but if you go this way, my friend, your life gonna be hell. And this is why we need the youth in America. We need the elected official. We need everybody to take some time to know this day is very important. I don't know why a lot of people don't know about the day. They're not gonna do any activities. But this is a mistake, and this is why a lot of people inside of America they sleeping off democracy. Now they supporting Trump, a guy who is like is just like Putin and others crazy autocrat and dictators around the world. Do we need to live in a society like that. No, and this is and people not giving these days so much take so much consideration for this day to say yes, we love democracy, it's not good, but we're not gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we have this, we have that. Since they do not do these activities to show the importance of democracy, a lot of people inside of America are slipping away from democracy because they don't know what they got. They never
So
take time to analyze democracy compared to other form of government.
is it too late for people to sign up to participate in your event?
Oh no, no, it's
So,
not too
so
late
before
to do
you
that.
leave, can you put the link inside the chat so that we can put the link up so that people can, and we can put it on our page as well. So if you inside the chat, put the link up, and we'll post it along the banner for everybody to see throughout the show, and then we'll also put it on the All Politics or Local page. So, what time does your event start? And is your event through like a Zoom event, or is it an in-person event? Just tell us about today's activities. How will it go?
Okay, we're gonna have some activities in Haiti. We're gonna have like a 7 or 8 activities. That means we're gonna take the time for the youth to sit down with some elders, with some different people from law enforcement, from the justice system, what we have left. But we're gonna talk to the youth about democracy and peace because we're gonna start September 15 until September 21st. From all these days, we're gonna have different activities in different institutions, but we're also gonna have activities online because a lot of people they're not gonna be able to travel. I'm gonna see if I can travel there. I bought my ticket to go and back, but the security is still very I'm not sure because a lot of people are dying, gunshot, kidnapping, a lot of violence down there. If I will not be a travel there, I will stay over here from Zoom and Facebook Live to see all things are going on because some of the youth they're pretty happy about the activities. They need some stuff to do because they don't see nothing else done. Misery, violence. The government really don't care about them. The U.S. government they're not gonna do those activities. So it's me, a lot of friends, and thank you for letting me speak on this.
Well, let me just ask you. We should have started off. You one of the things you had the sad occasion of your president in Haiti when he was murdered, and his wife was also shot. How's she doing today? And just real briefly, can you just give us a real brief update how she's doing and how where y'all at in that process?
Well, it was very messy, this situation, and I'm not happy about it. But for the former First Lady, she's doing very well. Right now, she's living outside of the capital with his folks in the countryside. Sometimes she sent some note about the situation of the country, and she's staying with his friends down the countryside side. But the situation is going nowhere. For the investigation, nothing has been done. Only the U.S. Sometimes they arrest a lot of people. They said there is a judge in Miami, Florida, that taking care of this case. The Congress also asked the FBI to do an investigation, and the result is yet to come. Probably they have some U.S. Officials in this plot to kill the president. We don't know yet. But the situation for the first lady is kind of okay because she's with a lot of friends and people that support her. But the country is going pretty bad, and that's why we need help doing those activities and to tell the youth there is another way to live, and democracy
Well,
is a way to save the country.
later on in the show, Chairman Hamm for People's Organization for Progress will be on, and he is one to when he teaches to let us know that had it not been for Haiti, there would have been a different or outcomes in our civil war. So how Haiti influenced the Civil War. So we will keep Haiti in our prayers. And we
Yes.
thank you for coming on and letting us know about your event. And please don't forget to put the link in our chat, in the chat. And then we will also post the flyer up on our page and we'll put your information on the banner. But as always, this is not your first time to All Politics or Local. We always ask the question because this is a hip hop political show. So both hip hop and political. And we always ask, what hip hop artist, individual, or group are you listening to that when you have to do the work that you do that inspires you or influences you to continue on? So is there a hip hop artist or group that you listen to?
Oh yes, Queen Latifah. She was in our backyard last week, I think. Last Friday.
Yeah.
She was doing a show. I think
We'll be talking about it later.
yes,
24 hours apiece. Yes.
yes, exactly. I was watching a Congressman Penny. He was there. He took a lot of pictures. That was very a good time for the folks to see. One of them, she's from Newark, and I took the time to listen to UNITY and others and other good music she put out. So right now, Queen Latifah, and sometime Kendrick Lamar also, and Common. Yes, that's what I'm listening right now. But I'm pretty busy doing a lot of stuff, and listening to hip hop has
You gotta
been
give
like
a shout out to my Wyclef. Wyclef.
oh yes,
I had the
yes,
opportunity to see Wyclef perform, and Wyclef is a great performer, and even his sister, But Wyclef can really, when you go see him perform, he really gives you a show worth his performance. So always give love to Wyclef,
yes.
And I know
I
he
love
has.
him. Yeah, I
Um,
love him. He did a lot of stuff for the country, especially he put Haiti in the map. So Wycliffe is my man. Yeah.
Okay. And like I told you earlier, we're going to go talking about, Chris and I will be talking about current events and what's going on. You're welcome to stay, but I know that you have a lot going on. So if you
Yes.
have to leave, we respect your schedule and we respect your time, but you're welcome to stay. Chris, as we talk about current events, we woke up this morning and yesterday, and we're talking about the Queen. It was like everybody is concerned that the Queen was not doing, and then by noon, we had news that the Queen um, had passed. Is this big news to you? Dury, you staying or you leaving?
Are you asking me what I think about the Queen
Yeah.
of England?
Brother Dumas, did you want to stay or you want us to take him out on Chris, Brother Dumas out?
Okay. Zapase.
Yes. Yeah, Nabule, I
Too
wanted
late.
just to put
Oh,
the link in the chat in the chat before I left. Okay. Thank
okay,
you.
gotcha. Okay, go ahead. Yes, Chris, I'm asking you. What did you think about what's going on? What was
Oh, I was
sitting our headlines?
I was devastated. It broke my heart. The poor Queen. It broke my heart. She's done so much for people all over the world, and it was such a sad day to see such a monarch of that stature gone and go.
Well, I will say if I had to compare something that like the young people, that's the only leadership they have known. She has been in leadership, since she's 96 years old, I think for like 70 years, correct? So that's the only person they have known. And like you said, when you came in, you had only the first person, it's not the only leadership you had known, but the first person you had experienced was the leadership of President Obama. So their view, it can be somewhat tainted, if you will.
I mean, for me, I think Roland Martin and Greg Carr did a good analysis of this in general. I think
Professor Carr. Okay.
All from Howard University, all major leadership on any level, local, municipal, and certainly international, they tend to have a complicated legacy. So what I mean by that is, I think tradition matters. I think that there's something to be discussed when a major world leader transitions, and I think that it's also fair to put that person's leadership in political context, right? This person, like as it relates particularly to the way England has related as a colonial superpower in the world to different peoples, right? And I think it's tough when we try to have ahistorical conversations. Like, yes, if I lived in one of the British Virgin Islands, I probably don't feel the same way about the Queen as I do if I grew up in England proper, and the power relationships and the way that things have been dictated over a course of several centuries and almost a century of her life, right? I think, unfortunately, we like to detach people from the times in which they exist, and I think that's a tough way to engage. And I think often that's why some of the conversations get out of control, is because we think we all should be reading people and reading history the same way, and we can't.
Right. And when you talking to young people, did the young people were they talking about it in the same way maybe the adults have been talking about it?
Well, no, not really.
Okay.
And I think the major reason why is because this is a generation who is driven completely by, for better or for worse, incredible amounts of information at a rate that no other generation prior to them has ever done it. And I think that, again, conversations like reparations in their lifetime, they have seen congressional hearings about reparations where, things like slavery have been talked about. In England, much to the chagrin of some people who don't want to talk about it right now, find it inconvenient, played a terrible role in the world, right? And one writer said that England that Great Britain is the empire on which the sun will never set. Right. So there is a reason why we're sitting here having this conversation in English right now. And so I think it's tough for anyone to think that we can have these conversations and we're all going to see the world the same way, because we all relate to historical figures differently.
And my grandmother died, and she died at 104, and she was raised in the Virgin Islands. And she would always refer to the Queen, and not even in her dying, even in her latter years when her memory was limited. So, like it's just I can remember, even though the Virgin Islands was, a part of the U.S., but in terms of when she was a little girl, it was different. So it's like you said, this generation, the information that they have, as opposed to their parents or their grandparents. So, but even I think it's so different to how different Harry and his brother William are. It's like you wouldn't even believe they were raised in the same household.
Well, that's the tough moment, right? Is that I can imagine in Black America, I think the moment is going to be whenever, I hope it's still several years away, but whenever Minister Farrakhan passes away, the Black community is going to see him very differently than other communities will, because of what his relationship has been to the Black community, to the cause of Black freedom, the Black freedom struggle, et cetera, right? So it is those conceptual realities, unfortunately, that change the way we see historical figures.
And that's a good way to take the conversation to a different way, because we shared a link that Jay-Z has some lyrics, and Ari on MSNBC referred to Minister Farrakhan and how deep he went. And I wish we could had been prepared to put, his what he thought about Jay-Z's lyrics, and how and how he broke it down, and how he referred to Minister Farrakhan, and how perhaps a person from MSNBC wouldn't have referred to Minister Farrakhan. They did not, when Minister Farrakhan made those remarks during that time, and how he's referring to him now, and he said perhaps he'd agreed with Minister Farrakhan, and I don't think anybody would have done that, when Minister Farrakhan had first made those remarks.
I mean, absolutely, and I think that that's the power of communication. But also, right? Everyone has. I shudder to think what's going to happen 30 years after I'm gone, right? Because everybody has a complicated legacy. I don't think there's the beauty of the human experience is our frailty,
right?
And so, one of the things RA said on the show is, you may not have agreed with everything Minister Farrakhan has said in his career, but he was right about this, right?
Right.
The comparison between when Mike Wallace made Nigeria the most corrupt nation on earth, right? And Minister Farrakhan is like, this nation is only 50 plus
30,
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the time, I think it was like 30 something years old, right?
30 something years old, right?
It's like, that's how old this nation is. And here you are 400 years and you've done all these terrible things. Has Nigeria ever ever eliminated its whole indigenous population? Has Nigeria ever enslaved people? I think you should be quiet, right? And also, I think Jay-Z is showing the power of lyrics, right? The power of hip-hop in general, because he forced mainstream culture to have that kind of conversation, particularly about a figure like Minister Farrakhan, who's often marginalized in mainstream conversations. So, I mean, yeah, but I mean, when Minister Farrakhan passes, Black America is going to see that radically different.
Right. And they're going to, and to have had this jewel of a person right here, and for us not, and nobody, when they were right here, Malcolm wasn't appreciated when he was right here. Dr. King was not appreciated when he was right here. It was not until they were gone that, like you said, they reflected on the men or women that went on. They reflected on the whole person. Did they go back and say, oh, wow? And then did they have a different thought about that person? So,
well, the reality is that history has this way. It was funny because it's funny how shifts in the body politic change conversations. One of the things that Dr. Carr said recently, talking about the modern moment that we are as it relates to the GOP, he was talking about student minister Ava Muhammad, who just passed away, who was the national spokesperson for the Nation of Islam. And he talks about how Elijah Muhammad, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, argued that when America finally crumbles, they're going to call it the shock of the hour, right? It's funny how what was radical yesterday and marginal yesterday is descriptive of the historical moment. Right.
Well, and I think, like Brother Dumas, and for somebody who does not have the right to vote, how passionate he is about how important it is to be engaged in your democracy, and to make sure that your democracy stays whole and that you participate in it. That for people that live here, that are born in the United States, that wake up, we really take it for granted. And Chairman Hamm also talks about how we have to remember that at one point Hitler was invited to speak at Madison Square Garden, and we have to stay engaged.
To a sellout crowd.
To a sellout crowd. Okay.
Don't leave that out.
Right. No, to a sellout crowd. And it wasn't in middle America. It was right down in Midtown Manhattan.
In good liberal Midtown Manhattan.
And we have, to say that democracy is a sport that you have to engage in, yet people don't. And then Brother Dumas went on to say that you have to be engaged locally, at the state, and at the most highest level, and that would be at the federal level. But people don't engage, and and sometimes you can really get worn out. Now, one thing I didn't have the opportunity to do, I only had the opportunity to listen to Eure reflect on Minister Farrakhan's statement as to Jay-Z's lyrics. Now, did you have the opportunity to hear anybody reflect on Ari's remarks? And did they agree with him, or did they still disagree?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad I get to say this before DJ Rhino get a rebuttal. You see, I'm just glad I get the mic first. It's one of the best lyrical performances that I've ever heard. Have you heard the song?
No, I just heard it. I didn't get a chance to. I just went and listen. No, I listened to it. I just been.
Oh, I can imagine. I'm just saying, it's one of those things you got to sit with. So it's only one verse of a song. Let's just start the song. But his verse is 4 minutes long.
Okay.
And there's so many things being tackled there: mental health, mass incarceration, draconian drug laws, all those things. And so I think that it is the way that Jay-Z seems to be using this, and I'm actually writing about it in a moment, right? So the way Jay-Z seems to be using this is to say that the way that we criticize marginalized communities assumes that somehow there's some high morality that other people have. And that's why he said, sometimes I feel like Farrakhan speaking to Mike Wallace.
I guess it's my passion. And how Jay-Z, because Jay-Z did the lyrics and put them out there and let it do what it do. But then he listened to Ari, and then he came back, and then he responded, "Oh, I guess it's my passion again." So, and that was a play also on what Farrakhan went after. Absolutely. Farrakhan he was passionate to Mike Wallace, and then he came back and said, "I'm sorry, I'm just passionate about it." Did Jay-Z have the opportunity to do that? That was
It's interesting because this is not the first time that Jay-Z has utilized Minister Farrakhan as a muse in music. In fact, he was just on an album that was, I think, 2 years ago, that was Grammy nominated. That's really all about the teachers of the Nation of Islam. Him and Jay Electronica did an album together. And so it's I think often the power of lyricism in general is that it can prick the human consciousness.
Yeah, and we have to say is that, and I don't think often that, and this should probably be a conversation that we talk about during DJ Rhino's hip hop time, but when a lyricist does his lyrics, you have to really look at them, because they really are using words, and I think they really study words, and then they look at words and how they could use a play on words to make people really think about them. And I know, like Talib Kweli, so don't take it lightly. Like Talib Kweli, his mother's an English teacher, so there's a lot of thought when they go into the raps and the things that they're saying. They're very conscious that they're making you think about what they're saying, and it's for you to go back and think and be like, did he just say? Wait, did he just say? Or did she just say?
But the reality is, I think that is why Hakeem Green, whose album I've been listening to a bunch, the reason he has a thing called weaponized hip hop. He talks about how hip hop has been weaponized is, I believe, I'm kind of paraphrasing. Minister Farrakhan says one rap song is as powerful as 1,000 sermons and 1,000 books. Right? In 4 minutes, a figure who has long been a pariah in mass media, in many ways because of the way comments have been taken out of context and all of those sorts of things, and also because of people's fragility, right? Like a Minister Farrakhan. In 4 minutes, Jay-Z was made that something that could be comfortably said on MSNBC. What academic could have done that? Could have done literally made, like, now, like, if you go look at different Farrakhan, in different conversations about Minister Farrakhan, different lectures about Minister Farrakhan on YouTube, the amount of people is just spiked, right? Because people are now conscious of that and also feel comfortable going to watch.
Right, and because of a 4-minute lyric. Okay.
Right. So I think that's been really impactful, and also I think there's a level of a lot of what Jay-Z says in this God did verse is an explanation to your point about why people find it hard to politically engage. for me in the 2016 election, you remember because you had the belt out for me. It was tough. It was tough to go to the polls for a person who referred to black people as super predators, right? And to see that as a viable alternative to a neo-fascist. I didn't quite understand. I didn't really see something that I felt good about, right? And I also think that people in power should do a better job of being able to read the room, as the kids. Like, if the only political choices that I get are the person who called me a super predator and the person who says that the land that I come from is an S-hole country, that's a.
I can't. It made me think of a rap. The two. What's the two? I can't think of the rap group, but they said, I got to choose between this and that. That's the only, I can't.
Arsenic and cyanide.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But we do, in this case, how do you? Because I guess you almost say, how do you play the game and not get caught up and not participating in the game? Like, a lot of people stayed home because those were their own choice. But how do you do when you look at the big scheme of things and go make a choice because of the big scheme and not just the smaller issue? Not that it's a small issue, but because if you had to look at, there were 100 issues. And
come a little closer to the come a little closer to the mic because you had faded out a little.
Let me start. How can we learn that there are 100 issues?
Hey Donna, I need you to leave and come back. You have become distorted. I can't really hear you. Just leave and come back. I got you. Okay, but while we're waiting on the councilperson to come back, I think that the conversation we're trying to have with everyone is a real reality of how do we make political decisions? How do we articulate it? How do we articulate those?
Oh, you know what? That was when my battery was getting low. That's serious. When your battery is getting low, your phone goes on life support. I had to plug in.
Okay, got it. All right.
Okay. So, does that sound much better?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. My phone was on life support. Okay. Right. I was saying, how do we? And I hate to say play the game because I don't want to minimize it, but how do we look at 100 issues and maybe not just one issues and say no to the one and say yes to the 99?
Well,
and not make it that simple and not to simplify it that much. But how do the thing is, if we want to maintain, how do we make sure that we stay as a constant participant in this process?
Well, I think it's a fundamental reality where, not to be cliche, but all politics are in fact local, right? Is that the global reality is also influenced by the local reality and vice versa. I think that it's really difficult. When I try to put my feet in try to put my feet in the shoes of my students, and try to even give myself grace as it relates to politics. It's really difficult to say, oh, okay, I'm being insulted on both ends, but however, I need this sort of thing to work. As somebody who, and I think you'll really appreciate it. I really want you to get in your car when you leave and when you finish doing the show to go listen to that verse. The song is called "God Did."
Okay.
One of the lines, I don't really want to ruin it for you because it was amazing, but one of the lines is, the laws are draconian, and for those who make the laws, I'm always have smoke for them. It's like at the end of the day, it is tough to negotiate one social position and subject position as it relates to politicians. And I think oftentimes it's about having the right candidate, right? Because in local elections, it feels different when you're going to vote for someone, that shares your communal understanding, that shares your passion for certain communities. And then in a national election, you're looking at people who crafted some of the worst legislation in the world, and somehow you're like, I still think this would be better than than the alternative. So it's tough. I think for a lot of people, it's going to come down to how do they perceive politics, also what they think that their actual issues and concerns are.
And I'm a person who came out of high school in 1985, and when I left high school, it was my teacher, Bob Bryant. He, instilled in us the importance of voting, and we must show up at every election. And as a result of that, I have voted in every election. I can remember being away in college, I voted, being away in the military, I voted. It was something that when I was coming through high school, and we had a whole class on it, and then at the end of that 8 weeks, we registered to vote, and we had to tell what we were going to do when we got of age and come back to our community and what we were going to do. So it was really a thought-provoking lesson that Mr. Bryan gave us, and that many of my peers that I graduated with, we have always voted, and from that time. But now young people who have never even had to even think, like I can touch maybe a relative who didn't have the right to vote, who had to go out there and really almost lose their life for the vote, and have them tell the stories. But this generation, there may be some people that are still alive, but they don't know it like perhaps I may have known the importance of it. And it's like, I'll go out and vote, or they won't. And I just have to, what I have to do, I may not like anybody. And, I might write somebody's name in, but I have to show up on election day to vote because it's that important.
Oh, I mean, I think for sure, and I totally agree with you as it relates to, and I think it's so tough. Again, it's so tough. That's why Frank Wilderson calls anti-blackness, anti-black racism, and antagonism. I think it's so tough because I totally empathize with the people who are like, I vote because my ancestors couldn't, and I participate because my ancestors. It's not that I don't think there's a good answer to that. And I also am sympathetic to the people who are like, but what does that vote mean if neither one of these people represent my interests? And I think and I also think that it's incumbent upon the political elites to be able to read the room. I think that if there had been a different choice other than Secretary Clinton, I think the turnout could have been dramatically different. And I think that, unfortunately, it seems as if both parties are radically different in some ways, but also wed to some pretty horrible things, as it relates to other issues. And so I think that makes the conversations that much more difficult.
So when did you and your students have an opportunity to talk about the Jay-Z? Did y'all go over that? Did you have that lesson yet?
I sent it to a bunch of them. Today we're only in the first sort of week of school, but we're gonna have that conversation going a little later. But yeah, I mean, it was when you think about the intellectual, literary prowess of an individual who can, as all accounts, the engineer, the person who created the track, everything, say he did that in one take and then got on a plane.
Jay-Z is, Jay-Z, I've watched him. He's a very smart young man. He stops and he doesn't talk real fast. I like how people always try to get him to talk, and he's like, no, I'm listening to what you have to say. And he says that often. Like, people always push him to talk because he's not quick to talk. Right. And he's very thoughtful with his words.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the, and it speaks to what happens when the best of a culture plays itself out in public.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, I mean, there have been criticisms of it, and I think rightfully so. But I think that it's had a very positive impact. He's, I believe, the greatest rapper of all time. Lots of folks disagree with me, but that's okay.
So he's definitely the GOAT. He is the
Oh yeah.
GOAT.
He says that on the song. He says that on the song. Yeah.
And you coming in from Baltimore, not down in PG County, I did want to talk a little bit about that young man who's actually getting ready to have his tennis match right now. What's his name? Dieury, the young man. He's getting ready. His game is starting right now. Just want to give a shout out to him and just hope he continue to do. His story is very humbling. Just to hear that his father was there as a worker, and he took that opportunity to learn how to play tennis, and look where he is today.
Yeah. Well,
so shout out to PG County.
We have reached the 7:00 hour, madam.
I know, and as our guest in the background.
Not yet.
Okay, so we will got to continue talking, and our guest should be showing up shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a very tumultuous couple weeks. There's a situation going on in Memphis where they had a young brother went on a shooting spree. And I think
the stabbings out in Canada. It's such a violent time. And in Memphis, you also had a young man who was released, and it resulted. It's still on trial right now. I think that was Memphis, where young man that did a lot of time, and he's being accused of murdering a jogger. Very violent times, and then like the stabbings that went on in Canada with I think they were two brothers on the. Are you familiar with that story?
I've heard a little bit about it. Yeah.
Okay. So, like you said, it's been a very challenging time, and then down in Texas, where the young kids were killed in the classroom, and they went back to school. And that morning, I remember the reports. Uvalde, they were all saying, "Yeah, we're going to go back and do it." And I was just saying, it's just not that simple to just go back. And by the afternoon, when the reports came out, some of the parents said they had to go get their students because the students started calling. They couldn't stay there. And Keesha Eure will be on later, and she talks a lot about trauma and how serious trauma is, and we need to pay attention to it. But I was thinking that morning when I was hearing a story that the student, they were interviewing the parents taking the kids to school, and they were like, well, we're going to do it, almost like the Nike commercial, just do it. But when I got home that evening, they were like, the babies were calling, like, come get me. And they were scared, and they didn't realize that trauma till they stepped back into that room.
Well, I mean, post-traumatic stress is incredible. And I think, Beto O'Rourke had a conversation, had a moment that I think may sway an election when he goes, the person is laughing about the Uvalde situation, and he goes, it's not funny to me, MF. I think often,
and it's going to go either way with him, because you're going to have people who identify that he is a person first before he's a candidate.
For sure.
And it showed, why I didn't see that. But one person can understand that, he was in perhaps his official role, and somebody said something that caused him, if you will, to step out of character and be the man that he is. It's like,
and I think that what we're looking at is a really tough conversation as it relates to humanity. Like I think the hardest part about the Democratic Party to me is that I think that they have not really wrapped their head around on who the opposition is. What I mean by that is, when you use words like moderate, when you use words like moderate Democrat, when you think of these words, the right knows who the Proud Boys vote for.
Right.
those situations.
I got
They know, they know who the Boogaloo boys vote for, etc. Oh, here's Reverend Tillett. Let me let him.
Okay. Hey, Reverend Tillett. How you doing, sir?
How are you, Reverend Tillett? Can you hear us, sir?
Did you took him out, Chris, or he took himself out?
I think he took himself out.
Okay. Time to come back. Okay.
I think that that's the thing about politics, right? Is I think often you got to identify who you got to be honest about. Machiavelli right to go to ruin should he ever sacrifice?
And I think it's easy. And I think it's easier because Congressman Payne always talks about that if you will, the Republican camp has like maybe 6 issues that they stay steady on, and the Democrats have a much bigger, like 20 to 30 issues, and that's a bigger tent, if you will, to try to work with. And it's, if you're just sticking to those 6 issues, it is easier to do that. But you are right, that moderate Democrat or that progressive Democrat may show up, and vote for somebody else, and they're not absolute about who they're going to vote for those very reasons, that they're moderate or they're progressive, and they're going to show their party, and it's just not like that with the Republican Party in most cases. However, I will say, hey, Reverend Tillett, can you hear us? You just muted yourself. Unmute. You can unmute him too, Chris. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, Reverend Tillett. We can hear your background.
Okay, great.
There you
Great.
go.
How's everyone? I heard someone saying my name. They said moderate Democrat. Well, that's me.
Nobody. I didn't say no. I didn't. No, I did not.
That's okay. Listen, I'm a proud moderate.
That's not what I said. I did not say
that. He was saying that.
I'm okay with that.
I didn't say that.
No, he said
okay.
To summarize what he was saying, the Republicans know who are going to vote for them. The Democrat, we have to know our camp better when it comes to moderate issues and progressive issue. A moderate or a progressive Democrat might step out and vote another way just because, and it doesn't seem to be that way with the Republican camp, if you will. But let's catch up first. We haven't seen you. Nice to see you.
Well, it's certainly good to be here. As you know, I have just been for the last 3 months in a really tough campaign against an incumbent state senator in Brooklyn. I was asked to run when the district was redrawn. It had been a largely gentrified district. It included some of the most gentrified areas of Brooklyn. And then the district was redrawn suddenly, and it included, at that point, a lot more of Brownsville and Bedford-Stuyvesant and Ocean Hill, in addition to Fort Greene and Clinton Hill and Prospect Park. So we thought we had an opportunity to actually take out a progressive or a democratic socialist candidate who has had a dismal record when it comes to African-American empowerment. And unfortunately, we did not prevail in this race. It was a tough environment to take an incumbent out in New York. We had 2 primaries this summer. If you Google the 25th Senate District today, you will not get an accurate map. The Board of Elections did a dismal job in actually getting a new map up. The old map is still up. And so between the 2 primaries, people really not knowing who was in the district, we did not do as well as we had hoped, but we raised some important issues, and we look forward to running again in 2 years.
And let's the person who did win, and he got back in. I'm assuming, did you move his agenda? Did it help? Did it help move his
Well,
agenda and recognize that he needs to listen more and do the
well, I
work?
will tell you this, a great metaphor. He had never come to the black clergy and elected officials organization in Brooklyn. This is an organization founded by Al Van, Reverend Herbert Daughtry, Annette Robinson, some of the leading lights in central Brooklyn. 2 years ago, when he was elected, he told the clergy, this is all the black elected officials and clergy in central Brooklyn. He told them he had a standing a DSA meeting at that time, Friday, once a month, and he could not attend. Well, can I tell you, he was there today? Okay. So for 2 years, he was not there. The first meeting of the year today took place, and he was there because we were unabashed in calling out the socialist agenda, reminding him that you can't represent the people of the 25th and also represent the Democratic Socialists of America. That's a conflict. The people are electing a representative. So I believe that he understands now that he was primaried. He can be primaried. He will be primaried. He's been in black churches that he never went in. And let's face it, the district has 360,000 people in it, over 360. Only 15,000 people voted. So it was an off year. It was a very unusual year. We never have primaries in August. So nobody really participated in the primary. He was able to get out his core constituents, which are largely gentrifiers. And so he prevailed. And so, to the victor goes the spoils. But we are watching him. We will continue to raise the issues that he has neglected in terms of black home ownership, in terms of school choice, in terms of crime in our community. And so I feel good about our race, and we'll continue to raise these important issues. Now,
And,
I'm sorry.
and Reverend Tiller, we had a young brother on who from Haiti, and he came on the first half hour to tell us about September 15th, International Day of Democracy, and the events that he will be doing with other people throughout the world. And one of the things he brought up was the concern that here in America that we, number one, didn't know about that date, and that our democracy is always under question. And here is a young man who's in America, but does not have his citizenship yet, and he's out teaching the importance of a democracy and how you have to engage and be a part of it. And
Absolutely.
he was talking about the young people in his age group and how comfortable they are. And can you speak to that?
I can. My brother is a pastor in Atlanta, Georgia. My brother is always talking to me about the Klan and white supremacists trying to stop black folks from voting. I said, well, listen, I just ran in Brownsville, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, in Ocean Hill, and I didn't see any Ku Klux Klan downstairs. And when I would go to those tables, an ED that had 5,600 eligible voters and only 3 people had been to the table at 4 o'clock, or 11 people, or in Brownsville, in one precinct, only 120 people voted in 7 days of early voting. So for me, as Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. Maybe there are some parts of the country where black people are being disenfranchised. I don't live, I can just say that in Brooklyn, New York, where I live, we've got to get people to vote, to participate. There are
In the
no
vote.
obstacles in their path. And so that's my reality. I can't speak for anyone else. I'm not in Mississippi or Georgia, Alabama, but I didn't see the Klan in Brooklyn when folks didn't vote.
So people need to get out and participate.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
one of the things we did say earlier, Chairman Hamm is always reminding people that Hitler, and I said it early, did speak at Madison Square Garden. So while it's not an issue today, it could be an issue one day. again here in our part of America, and
Well,
that's why.
I think it can, but I take a different approach because
Okay.
I just believe whenever we're vigilant. Listen, uh, America. I keep telling you, politics is warfare without a gun. So if you take some territory and then you lay down and you don't uh, defend that territory, you don't have sentries, you don't form a line, you don't have troops, then of course people will encroach upon that territory. If you understand warfare, and that's all politics is, warfare without a gun. We it's no one stopping us. It's us stopping ourselves. And that's why we've got to have more political education, as the Panthers did. We've got
Right.
to have more political education as other folks are doing. I know Mayor Baraka's doing that. I was with the chancellor in New York today. We got to teach civics in the schools. I don't see a doomsday. I see a powerful Black community that went from slave ships to championships. I see us as our own worst enemies. When we're vigilant, when we do what we're supposed to, nobody in the world can mess with us.
And that is correct. And we have to do what we need to do. And we also, well, first of all, let me just stop and say congratulations on running a campaign and still being here to talk about it. So let me say that
I know
first.
you've been down that road, so you
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. So,
Yes.
you know,
And
that you
when you lose them, it is tough. But one of the things that I realized is that, in the last several days, the press conspired with with my opponent, and they raised positions that I held, and they even attributed statements that I did not make 20 and 30 years ago. And but that's fine. But even with that, it probably turned some of the white voters away from me. But even at that, there are 360,000 people in the district, and only 11,000 people voted for my opponent. So we can win these races. We can
that's
win these races in Brooklyn, in Harlem, but we have to be vigilant. If we're vigilant, if we fight, we win.
and we also Chairman Hamm is here. So well, Chairman Hamm, welcome
I
to
see
the
Brother
vote.
Larry Hands.
Look like
Hello,
you just came
hello.
off. You was out running today. You must have went out and ran a couple of laps today. You was out running, Chairman.
Well, yeah, after Labor Day, I have to start getting in shape for my birthday run. I go on a long run on the 24th of December. Uh,
Mhm.
so I have to have to get in shape for it.
So how many laps did you do today?
24.
That's wonderful. I
And
take
I
my
don't
hat
know,
off to you.
Reverend Tiller, did you just hear him say he
I
just
said
came off
I
of
take
it?
my hat off to him.
No, he heard you say that, but I want to know if he heard. Did you hear that he just said that he just come off of election?
Oh,
Did you hear?
Oh, yes, I know about his election, and I know about the hatchet job they tried to do on the brother. I saw all that,
oh yeah.
and I was like shaking my head. But I know Brother Conrad, Reverend Conrad, I know he has a strong character, and I know he would not be deterred by, that character assassination. You know, I, I just wonder what. I mean, they'll do that. They'll go back and dig up stuff
Oh
from
yeah.
40 years ago. You know, but we
Well, and
won't
I
be
think
deterred.
the main thing is, I was in a very chaotic, compressed window of time. Sunday night on my show, I'm going to be doing constructing of the race, and one of the things that we have to, as a community, stand up. You know, when you are in Newark and Brooklyn today, and Harlem, a lot of whites have moved into the community, and they have just fallen in love with the community and turn our community into their vision of a community. And, these people are historical revisionists. They didn't want to be in Bedford-Stuyvesant when I was fighting with criminals and crack dealers and trying to reform my people and trying to protect my community. And so to come in with a revisionist history and act as though Bedford-Stuyvesant and Brownsville have always been Shangri-La without even understanding the historical context. You know, they want to write the nation off as though the nation is only concerned about issues concerning white people and Jews, without even taking into account the long history of these communities. And we see this with our churches. You know, they move into our community and all of a sudden we're not supposed to have church on Sunday morning. We're not supposed to double park our cars. And these are things that we as a community are going to have to stand up and be vigilant about and defend the integrity of our communities, of our history and our struggles, because it's me today in Brooklyn. When they decide they want to move to Newark, it'll be Raz Baraka. Oh, he's the son of Amiri Baraka, as though the only thing Amiri Baraka ever did was said something that they didn't like. So, you know, we just have to be vigilant. And as you said, Brother Larry Hamm, you know, I'm a veteran of the movement. I'm undeterred, but it does hurt to see my community. We let 11,000 people who are essentially newcomers determine the fate for 360,000 people. In the last election 2 years ago, when my opponent ran, 60,000 people voted. This year in total, only 15,000 people voted.
We got to do better. We have that when I look at that minority number is making decisions for the majority,
Absolutely.
it just does something to my spirit.
Absolutely.
So, and we also and we're gonna, this is your hour, but we also, did you have an opportunity, Chairman and Reverend Tiller, to see Ari's report on Jay-Z's lyrics and how they went back and referenced Minister Farrakhan?
No, I didn't.
Okay, we'll wait till next
I know that Ari Melber is a hip hop fan. I know he did interviews with several prominent hip hop artists, and when I listen to his program from time to time, even during his regular program, he will sometimes reference lyrics.
Right.
Well, I want us to have a good
conversation. Is this something new that happened?
Yeah, well, you would, because you were running. So we'll talk about it in October. So we'll save it for, put a pin in that, because we want to have a healthy conversation about his referencing Farrakhan and Mike Wallace's interview and to Jay-Z's newest song. So let's have a healthy conversation. Chris, we're gonna do that in October, okay?
I'm excited about it. I mean, you know, for me, it's interesting because, Reverend Tiller, I give you a moment of levity. I looked at Chairman Hamm the other day. I said, you know, you got to be hydrated to do all this work, right? And he went, I don't drink water. My cognition is not going to be good if I don't drink my water. I said, no, sir, you got to have your water. And I think, you know, as a person from Baltimore, maybe I shouldn't be telling water jokes right now, but okay. But you know, Reverend Tiller, the thing that I think is most missing, right, as a person who has admired you from afar for a long time, I think the thing that's most missing is, and councilperson, me and the councilperson were talking earlier, I do not believe fundamentally that the vast majority of the younger constituency, meaning anybody under 40, has a positive outlook on what politics done correctly and from a culturally responsible perspective actually can do for them.
Sure.
I think that for me, you know, I think I'm a classic example. The first president that I was eligible to vote for was Barack Obama. Right?
Wow.
And so for me to look up, and as you know, James Baldwin said, to be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. At the time when the 2016 election was running, you know, a lot of my students were reading Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow for the first time. So to get newly eligible voters to go out and vote for the people who are most responsible for the 1994 crime bill over a neo-fascist is a very difficult conversation to have, right? And a lot of us, myself included, were very disillusioned by those kinds of choices. And I think as a community, we have to be better about educating people on what that means and what it does and how it works. And I
Well,
love
can I answer that?
But
Because that's
and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make y'all promises. I'm going to let you answer it, and then Larry, you respond. But we're going to spend a strong half an hour talking about the water crisis in our community. But go ahead.
okay. Sure. So I'm glad you raised that, Brother Randall. And I would just say this, particularly because you are young and you say the first president you were eligible to vote for was Barack Obama. Well, the first president I was eligible to vote for was Jesse Jackson when he ran in 1984. And I think that the way you answer that question for young people, because it's really not, see, it's hard for a person to have that kind of conversation with a young person. But the way you have it is to remind them of what the civil rights movement was about and what life was like in America when we could not vote. See, I've met thousands of young brothers and sisters on the campaign trail in Bedford-Stuyvesant and Brownsville, and they say, "Oh, I'm good. No, I'm good. I'm not interested. I'm good. No, no, I ain't with that." But see, they never lived in a county where they could not vote for the sheriff or for the tax assessor. They never lived in a county where they tried to register to vote and the registrar had irregular hours. They never were given a poll tax to pay, or they never were shown a jar of marbles and asked, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm in Harlem. They were never asked to count how many, give me the exact number of marbles in this jar to vote. And so they don't know what it's like not to have black mayors, not to have black school superintendents, not to have black police chiefs. Now, you could say, well, we got them, and what difference does it make? Well, try to live under Bull Connor or Sheriff Jim Clark, Chief Lowry Pritchett. And so sometimes it's hard to have a conversation with people that have not known struggle or have known the advantage of being able to be as bold and flagrant as they are. And I think that that's where I wish the young people would sit down sometimes at the foot of the elders. And I can tell you, it is a difference having Eric Adams as mayor rather than having Rudolph Giuliani. So once we begin to understand these things, then it's not a matter of uh, is voting going to change everything in our lives? Because of course it won't. But we can't keep going to this default position. We don't see the value. The only way you're going to see the value is getting those history books and look at when we could not vote and how dismal our lives and prospects were.
And what I will say, Reverend Tillard, if we can right now make a commitment, Chairman, in October, you will come back with Reverend Tillard, and we're going to talk about. I'm gonna make sure both of y'all get the link about Ari, reference to Mike Wallace's and Farrakhan's interview, and then in in reference to Jay-Z's lyrics. And we're going to talk about that. And then we can also talk about what you just said, Reverend Tillard, about how young people are going to have to pick up some books, because Congressman Payne says that often. Well, tell them to go pick up some books and see why they have the right to vote. So we can get a commitment that we're going to talk about first half an hour Mike Wallace and the reference to Ari and his reference to Jay-Z's lyrics with Farrakhan, and then another half an hour on why we have to get our young people out there voting, and they can't get caught up in the moment, and they have to look for why they have to vote. We'll do that in October. Okay. Okay, so now we're right on time, 7:30. We're gonna go, and we're having a crisis with water. And I want to believe, I know I heard it said, it might have been Congressman Payne that actually said it. Why are we having these water crises that happen in our communities and perhaps not in the suburban communities? Reverend Taylor, don't leave us. But, and I know, Larry, you wanted to talk about what was going on down in Mississippi, down in Jackson, and I think Chris just made a reference to water in Baltimore. And then it was the issues that we keep having with water in a lot of urban communities. And this is something that we have to talk about. So let's talk about it. You got the mic, Chairman.
Oh, me? I had just drifted back down memory lane. I heard Reverend Tillett say that his first president that he could vote for was Jesse Jackson. And so I started calculating, right? Let's see, when I was born, Dwight Eisenhower was president.
Look at Chris.
I was born in the Jim Crow America. I lived through and experienced Jim Crow. I was born in '53. The first president I would have voted for, but I didn't vote for him in 1960. Let me see. Would have been Richard Nixon. Would have been not in 1960, but I was eligible to vote in December of 1971. So Nixon was in the midst of his first term. He was in his third year at that time. But I don't want to. I know you the shot caller there, Donna. So I'm gonna stay with the program.
No, I mean, but I said you can respond to what he said. So go ahead.
Right? No. I thought he was right on with what he was saying. The only thing I would say, I was glad to hear, even before he said that, he had made reference that he sat down with the chancellor of education in Newark to discuss civics in I gather
in New York,
right? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the reason that we don't have civics in the majority of high school curricula in the country today is because of a policy decision. That decision was made by William Bennett during the Reagan administration. Bennett was the Secretary of Education, and he made a conscious decision to eliminate certain subjects from the curricula because the emphasis then was, I believe, on STEM, because we were really getting serious, even getting beat. I mean, when you looked at the achievement, because it's not just you look at achievement scores in your state, they are tests that are taken by students worldwide. And the US was not measuring up to its other industrialized countries. And even some, at that time, third world. China was considered third world, but now, they done put a down payment on the first world. They on the way to be the biggest economy in the United States. But I just wanted to say that it was a policy decision. It wasn't accidental. The government made a decision to take civics out. And not only did they take it out, they refused to give any funding for civics curricula. And now we see, the results of that. Civics should be in all high schools. Being a citizen. I think I read somewhere, I think it was Plato who said, the price of ignoring public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Plato said that 2,400 years ago.
I need you to repeat that for the people in the back. I need you to repeat that for the people in the back.
people in the balcony, right?
the price of ignoring public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. And this idea that democracy was more than voting, was clearly understood, even with the very limited democracies that existed 2,400 years ago. This country looks to ancient Greece and ancient Rome, probably Greece more so, because certain men with property could vote. All men couldn't vote. It was a very limited democracy. And all of these societies, it's not ironic, it's historic that the United States would look at classical Greece and Rome as models, because those were slave societies. all those Greek societies that they make movies about. You know, you always hear in the Hercules movie, you hear about Athens, you know, and the 600. You hear about Sparta. Man, they were slave societies. There were so many slaves in Rome that the Senate was taking up a proposal that the people who were enslaved should wear certain types of clothes. That proposal lost in the Senate because they said if they put this uniform on all slaves, and the slaves will clearly see that they outnumber, you know, the freemen and the patriarchs of the society. But that I don't want to drift from the subject.
All right,
But
so we'll see you on the second. We'll see you in October. You have to put that on your agenda because we're going to
right,
talk about those
right.
two
But the
things.
water, let me just say on the water that it's criminal what's happening down there in Jackson. You know, we've sent between January and now, we've sent close to I think it's $47 billion to Ukraine. We've sent as much money to Ukraine, almost as much money as we spent on the Vietnam War from 1966 to 1970. You know, and here in our own country, like they just restored the power in Jackson. So the water system is working, but when they turn on the water, mud is coming out. It's not even water when you look at it. Like you look at that, what's coming out of the faucet, you can't do nothing. Well, you can't boil that. You can't purify that. And it's a crime. And it exists because of the historical neglect and the racism that has existed toward Black communities and these Black towns and cities for decades. For decades, people, you know, Reverend Conrad said that the first president he could vote for was Jesse Jackson. I was involved in the Jackson campaign in both campaigns, the campaigns in '84 and in '88. In the first campaign, Reverend Jackson said that we needed a national infrastructure program that could be a national jobs program, that we could create a national jobs program just on the rehabilitation and construction of new infrastructure in this country. That was in 1984.
And Larry, let me add this about that. That was his convention speech in 1984 in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Young people need to listen to that speech and study it, because all of them now are so enamored by this progressive DSA, Democratic Socialist, as though Bernie Sanders created this notion of LGBTQ and progressives and multiracial coalition and women. They need to go back and listen to that 1984 speech, because that speech has been declared one of the 100 most important political speeches. And you're right, Jesse laid all of that out, rebuilding the wasted cities, putting people, training young people to be glaziers. I mean, you're absolutely right. I just wanted to co-sign what you just said.
So,
and before you go on, Reverend Taylor, where did you say your brother was a pastor at?
Down in Atlanta.
Oh, in Atlanta. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Larry.
yeah. So, and not only, I just want to second what Representative Tiller just said. You know, about listening to Jackson's speech. But not only should they listen to Jesse Jackson's speeches, you know, we're getting ready to have this 50th anniversary commemoration of the Gary Convention of 1972. People should go back and read the National Black Political Convention platform that came out of Gary in 1972. I looked at it again a few months ago when I spoke at an event that Jonathan was involved in, as a matter of fact, who was a host of this show, at an event they had for students, for high school students, but it was held at Seton Hall University. And preparing for the presentation I was going to make that day, I went back and took a look at the convention platform, and, you know, like at least 60% of the stuff in there you could put into a platform today and it would still be relevant. Like in the very introduction of the convention platform, in the very introduction, they highlighted what they considered the 4 key demands, the 4 core demands, and one of those was for national health care, was for universal national health care system in the United States, not just for Black people. They said universal national health care system, you know, and you would think, to hear people react today when people bring that up, like people look at them like they from another planet. No, 50 years ago, that was a demand, you know, and you know, it's something. History is very important, and that's why you have to have conscious teachers. You know, I think a lot of times the students don't know because the teachers don't know. You know, the teachers can only bring the information they have. And I'm a licensed teacher. I went through teacher training, you know, and I know that the training that teachers get is woefully inadequate for urban education, for urban public schools, and for the populations they have to teach in urban public schools. So it's a very serious problem. And by the way, the link between Bernie Sanders and Jesse Jackson, that's also historical. Bernie Sanders endorsed Jesse Jackson in 1984 and in 1988. In fact, he was one of the few white elected officials, because at the time he endorsed Jesse in 84, he was the mayor. What's that city?
Burlington. He was the mayor of Burlington.
He was the mayor of Burlington when he endorsed Jesse in 1984.
Yes, he did. But my point was, young people who today are dismissive of traditional Black leadership and civil rights leadership, who look to Bernie, don't realize Bernie sat at Jesse's feet in 1984, and so the progressive was Jesse Jackson, and he is
in 84. Yes.
As far back as 84. So,
Jesse Jackson.
That was my point.
Right. Jesse Jackson was the forerunner. He was the one, even though our sister Shirley Chisholm ran in 72, it was Jesse that mounted the campaign that gained the most delegates. Right. I mean, you know, Sister Chisholm, she had a very small number of delegates when she ran in 72, but Jesse had enough delegates in 84 for him to give them a serious challenge. And if it hadn't been for the ambush with the Town, who knows what might have happened? He might have ended up being the nominee, or at least being on the ticket. There would be no Barack Obama if it wasn't for Jesse Jackson.
And the sad thing is, they're still doing the Town maneuver, and that's what my race was all about.
I wanted to ask you, Conrad,
that was the same issue.
Was your district redistricted?
It was. In fact, the district initially has, of course, Fort Greene, which has been virtually completely gentrified, and Clinton Hill. That's where Biggie Smalls is from. Fort Greene is where Spike Lee is from. And these were traditional Black and Latino communities. Now they have been almost completely gentrified by highly educated, high-income whites. And so, but the district also used to include Borum Hill and gentrified Red Hook. Red Hook is almost completely gentrified. Borum Hill, Park Slope. But the district, when I ran, it was redrawn. It still had Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, but it also has Bedford-Stuyvesant and a very large section of Brownsville. But it turns out that the voters in Fort Greene and Clinton Hill, 11,000 of them, were able to produce more numbers than the rest of the district. So yes, that's correct.
Yeah, because that's another way that they're gaming the system, is through redistricting. And I'm really surprised that the Democrats in New York, being that they are stronger than most states. I mean, they got control of both houses and the governor's office.
the traditional Democrats are under attack in
Yeah.
New York. So especially in Brooklyn, the progressives and the socialists and the New Kings Democrats are fighting the traditional black
The
and
fight with them.
Latino coalition.
So it's the
The
fight
point,
with
the
them.
point
Yeah.
but the point I was trying to make is that it seems that the Republicans were able to get more out of the redistricting. Like the first plan that was offered up for redistricting in New York State was beneficial to the Democrats, but then
Well,
the Republicans challenged them.
yeah, but what happened was
Go ahead.
no. What happened was the Democrats were responsible for the redistricting, but they actually got greedy, and they basically redrew the districts to where it would be very few Republican representatives. They overreached. In fact, that was the problem, and the Republicans sued and went to court, and the judges decided that in fact the Democrats with the majority had overreached, and everyone recognizes that the redistricting effort was too comprehensive, and it forced the issue back into the court. So you're absolutely right. The first lines were definitely beneficial to the Democrats, but unfortunately, the Supreme Court said that they were too disadvantageous to Republicans statewide. So that's what happened.
And this is something. And this is
Let me. I'm just ask a question. I'm turning back to you too, but Reverend Tiller and Chairman, you started talking about water, and then we're
Right.
talking about. And no, I just
Infrastructure,
wanted to say because we're going to stay no, but then we're
Yeah.
talking about redistricting, but before that, we were talking about the importance of civics and how do we get, because the conversation gets very deep, if you will, but how do we get the voter to understand that this is all you're voting for, how your infrastructure is going to be, what's important on that agenda, what's going to happen when it's time to redistrict? How do we get the voter to understand that you have to participate because all of this is going to affect you?
Well, you have to talk to people's interests. For instance, it would seem to me that if we wanted to get young people involved, we should talk about this student loan business. The president has put forward not a proposal, now it's implemented. He put forward a policy that would essentially eliminate student debt or significantly reduce it for about half of the people that actually hold student debt. Now, the Republicans are going into court to stop the implementation of the student debt forgiveness program. So if I was going out and I wanted to get young people, I would be going on all the college campuses saying, look, you guys, if you want this student debt program to remain in place and also to be expanded to include the other half of the people that was left out, you can't let the Republicans get control of the House and the Senate. You know, if I was going out to talk to senior citizens, I have seen some of the most crazy reactionary proposals coming out of the Senate. They want to eliminate Social Security. I'm on Social Security. Let me tell you something, I'm gonna go get my gun permit. If they start talking about they're gonna eliminate Social Security, that's half my income. Yeah. I got two pieces. I got Social Security and I got a pension. They want to eliminate Social Security, and their step-by-step plan is that they want to sunset Social Security. Social Security is an entitlement permanent program. Ron Johnson and these other Republican senators, they want to sunset it. They want to every 4 years for the Senate to vote on Social Security. That's a step toward the elimination of Social Security, you know, and on and on and on. You can go down the line. Look at women right now, whereas a month ago or a couple of months ago, it looked hopeless. look like, you know, what they always say, that the party that's the party that's out of power gains in the midterm election after the election of the president. It looked like the Republicans were going to get the House, but then they went and did the abortion. The Supreme Court ruled on the Dobbs decision, and now they have all these anti-abortion laws, and in fact, total abortion laws in many of the southern states, what they call the red states. That has stirred up a hornet's nest. Women are registering in record numbers now. And now even the mainstream pundits are saying it's a toss-up right now at best, and or the momentum is in favor of the Democrats because women are going to come out to vote in record numbers in this midterm election. So if you want to get people to vote, you got to speak to people's interests.
Well, let me say this. I agree wholeheartedly with that overall point. I would slightly differ with Brother His Excellency Larry Hamm. I only went to Penn. He's a Princeton guy, so I'm not able to wax as eloquently as he is on Plato.
You're a preacher. What you talking about?
My school produced Donald Trump. You know, I used to tell the
level of bullshit, the level of bushiness that just took place is incredible.
I used to tell the Wharton
hey, Hakeem Green, we're gonna have to get on out this conversation all together. We got between Jonathan and the Ivy League right now.
I used to tell the Wharton guys they were just getting a trade school education. I used to tell the Wharton guys they were only getting a trade school education, but we didn't learn to wax as eloquently as Larry had did. But let me just say this lastly. I feel like this. There is a pox on both houses as far as I'm concerned. I would differ from most blacks today, as I think we need to jettison partisan political education. We need to be able to distance ourselves from a partisan analysis, because I agree with you in each of those instances, Larry, those issues. But there's so many issues where the Democrats have failed. And I think if we teach black people the fundamental nature of a democratic republic, a representative government, we rail against things that we need to be able to teach people to understand. It's one thing to rail against the Electoral College, but it's another thing to understand why we have it. And so my point is this: if you equip people with the fundamental understanding of how government operates, what the limits of government are, but why we need to. I met thousands of little cute sisters when I was trying to get petitions, and some of them, city councilwoman wouldn't even look at me. Some of them would just wave me off. I'm good. And I say, you real cute. I said, but did you see that Roe decision? I don't vote. Okay. Well, and my point is, so you're right, you show people their interests, but I think even more so, if black people understood what politics was, we'd stop being disappointed. We confuse politics with religion. We're too passionate about it. We're not scientific enough about it. And I think when you're scientific about it and you understand it fundamentally, then you don't say things like, I don't like this politician, or I'm not feeling. You understand? You try to figure out how to maximize the system, to use it for what it's worth. And then, there's inherent benefit that comes from that. And I just think that, if we don't unlock the mystery of politics, and sometimes that requires us to be bipartisan and to not deal with partisanship, I think that's where the true education comes in. And then I think people will figure it out. So I agree with him. I agree with you 100%. But when I was petitioning, I have to tell you, I ran into many people who said, when I said, are you a registered Democrat? I need you to sign my petition. And people are finished with these labels. People in the streets are like, no, I'm not a Democrat. No. Even though in Brooklyn, the most Democratic county, Kings County in America, I had to tell people, if you are an independent in Brooklyn, you've basically disenfranchised yourself. because the Democratic primary is going to determine the winner of every race. But people are tired of these labels. So that's a slight disagreement with you, but in principle, I absolutely agree with you.
Should I got quiet? Well, I agree with most of what you say, especially the part about you said representative democracy. Did you say that? Yeah. I especially agree with that, and that is why we are in a new era in American politics, because the Republican Party has abandoned the idea of representative democracy. The Republican Party now is under the control of Trump and all of those that are with him, the MAGA gang, and they have abandoned. They are about seizing power by any means necessary now. If I didn't know better, I would say that they were Leninists, that they had read State Revolution, and that they were, in fact, I actually heard an interview with Steve Bannon where Bannon was referencing Lenin. Now, why is that important? Because in Russia in 1919, there wasn't an election. There was a seizure of power, and that's what they want to do right now. I mean, did you see that tweet Trump sent out the other day? He said, there must be either a new election or I must be installed as the rightful president of the United States. I mean, I didn't think he could say anything else beyond that he wouldn't commit to a peaceful transfer of power. I mean, to me, that was it right there in 2020, in August of 2020. And when during that debate, that first and only debate, the woman asked him, would you commit to a peaceful transfer of power? He wouldn't answer the question. He wouldn't answer it because he was already in the process with all of his people of planning a takeover of the government. Their idea was to keep him in power regardless of what happens at the ballot box. And that's the essence of fascism. And that's the new era that we're in. We're in an era now where there are Republicans leaving the Republican Party because they don't agree with the people who have gained control of the party. And the people who are in control of the party now are Trump people. And they're going to win it by hook or crook. They're going to steal whatever they can do to get him in power. They're going to do it. And in essence, they're committed to a white minority government in this country. That's what
that's why the electoral college exists.
You don't understand that. You in the electoral college exists.
Chairman, can you hear me?
Man, I hear you.
Okay. Oh, you just gonna get that? Okay.
Because Conrad made a very important point. The point of representative democracy. And what we have right now is a choice between one party that still wants to play by the rules of a representative democracy and another party that's rewriting the rules.
Right.
Okay.
To in fact seize power. Do you know what kind of hell we're going to have in November? What? They are not going to accept defeat. They are going to contest every congressional race if they lose it. It's going to be chaos. I'm telling you.
No, you're right.
This is a new era that we're in.
I want us to break it down so people can understand. Now, there's a couple of things. Hakeem, I hear you with the amen corner, so it seems like you have something you have to say. But I also want, before Conrad made that statement, he also said that when he walked by the young ladies, they made statements, and then he said, that's not cute. That he brought up Roe versus Wade. So one of the things I had said earlier, Congressman Payne always reminds us is that the Republican Party stays on, let's say, 6 issues, while the Democrats, we have a bigger, like 25 issues or whatever. Is that part of because Roe versus Wade has been one of the things they have been fighting since it became law. So is part of the problem, and for people to understand, is that what appears to be the Democratic lack of focus is that we're trying to appease everybody instead of, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Because there are a lot of issues that they're trying to tackle because of the diversity of the Democratic Party for various reasons. So maybe that's the success of the Republican Party, and they're getting exactly what they want because they're just saying we're going to is abortion, guns, and conservative government. It's a couple of issues. While we you go from each, you have the progressive Democrats fighting the moderate Democrats. How do we keep people focused that they vote and they stay engaged, that we can move our agenda forward in a simplified way where people are not so lost? And if you would, because I heard Conrad said that you had 2 primaries. We wear people down with a lot of elections as well.
Yeah, and let me. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoever was in whoever was next, go right ahead.
Hey, Reverend Tillett, I'm getting ready to throw you a mean alley-oop. Okay.
Okay.
It's coming off the backboard. You just cut,
Okay.
cut to the basket. I'm gonna throw it off the backboard. Just dunk it. Okay.
Okay.
What the Republican Party has done is a theological, spiritual issue.
Mm-hmm.
It is as Stephen Finley and Biko Nelson have written. It's called the religion of white rage. They are looking at the demographic numbers, and they want to be able to concretize white supremacy as the national political platform for as long as we all exist, as long as global warming will let us stay here. Right?
Reverend
I think until we can conceptualize that, we do not know the devil we are fighting.
I'm the wrong reverend for that, and I'll tell you why. I have gone to liberal theological seminaries, and I don't subscribe to, one of the things that has infected Black thought. Our problem, as far as I'm concerned, Larry Hand, is Black thought has been shaped by too many people at Harvard and Yale and Princeton in the last 30 years. And these are people whose lives are
largely... a Princeton man, Reverend Tillett.
No, but I'm not talking about people who went to Princeton in the 60s and the 80s. I'm talking about, these are people today. It's one thing to be a young person on the streets of Newark or the Bronx and have an opportunity to go to Dartmouth or Princeton or Morehouse or Bates. But what has happened is we got a class of Negroes that their whole professional careers have been on these elite college campuses. They spend more time around elite white educators than they do Black people. And the language of the elite white people becomes the language of the Black opinion shapers. So there's much that has been said about white Christian nationalism or white supremacy. Well, that's fine if that's Malcolm talking about that, but somebody who is a white supremacist just happens to be a liberal one, civil libertarian, and a more progressive one, is not to tell me who is a white supremacist or not. So my position is this: I don't see the Democrats as this pure. I don't see it as a polemic between Democrats and Republicans. I see Democrats largely as run by elites who are fighting for the things that they want. We got marriage equality in this country, but no economic equality. Okay, so people in the Democratic Party, just like in the Republican Party, prioritize what they want, and often it is not what Black people want. And so I prefer Black people to have a different kind of conversation, a conversation that speaks to our specific needs. Our specific. I see the Republicans. You talk about the Roe fight, and sometimes you just got to look at your opponents and say, you know what, I respect their game. For 50 years, they fought to overturn Roe. They did it methodically by appointing judges by using the rules of the Senate, often hypocritically, to
Gutting
block
voting rights,
Democrat
gerrymandering.
judges. We had Ruth Bader Ginsburg that was on the Supreme Court that could have resigned. We had black folks that didn't go out and vote, young people in critical races that the Democrats could have won. So I see the Republicans as using the political system the way it's designed to be used. And I see us using it the same way. I don't see black people using it the way that we should be using it. So when you say they're pushing white supremacy, I don't know. I mean, I see white elite Democrats. When you start talking about global warming, this is another thing that black folks talk about. All of a sudden now, global warming is such a concern. Well, I tell my son, who goes to a great liberal progressive school, when the people he goes to school with get rid of at least one of their 3 houses, then I'll know they're serious about global warming. Because I'm not going to, in my apartment in Brooklyn, I can turn the heat down to 60, but my footprint is not as large as theirs. And I think we got to have this critical analysis of a lot of this stuff, because global warming means people telling senior citizens in Brooklyn that they can't park their cars in front of homes they've owned for 40 or 50 years because young whites that move in the neighborhood who want to ride bikes basically say their lives are meaningless because cars are bad and people who drive cars need to be driven out of the city. We're about to have a congestion pricing tax where people who come into Midtown Manhattan, this is going to affect Jersey people too, are going to have to pay $23 to get into Manhattan. Why? Under the name of global warming. And yet people are flying around in private jets, got 2 and 3 homes, Hollywood celebrities and stars, and progressive Democrats. So, you know, I'm the wrong minister, brother. That's not for me.
Reverend Tiller, let Hakeem respond, but I also want to remind people that when President Trump came in, one of the first things he did was to give a tax credit for jet fuel. So you're right about that, Hakeem. And that was a permanent tax credit.
Yeah, I want to ask Larry Hamm the relevance of 2 points. You name interest, identifying where our interests lay. But then I think it's also important to identify where your allies lay. Not your friends, not your family, but your allies. And I would like you to speak to those 2 points in reference to the 2 dominant parties and independent parties, if we can manage to create one for ourselves.
So, Chairman, can you respond? And then Reverend Tiller as well. And let me know when Rhino's in the room. Chairman?
Well, let me say, in terms of what black people want to vote. And Republicans in 49 states have introduced 440 bills, which have become law in 19 states to suppress black people's right to vote. You know, right now in public schools in Florida, teachers can't put up pictures of Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King in public schools because of CRT. In fact, the governor of Virginia ran his whole campaigning against something that's not even taught in elementary schools in Virginia, CRT, critical race theory, because they don't want Black history taught. Black people want Black history. Black people want their kids to have Black history. But right now, there's a national movement in this country to stop the teaching of Black history. So, you know, I don't know about these elites and all this stuff. All I know is that everything that Black people have been fighting for the last 50 years, these people are trying to eliminate it. The next major Supreme Court case is going to be on affirmative action. Now, there are many people that this may not affect, but I know I went to college because of affirmative action. And most Black people I know went to college because there were affirmative action programs that were part of the higher education bill. Because when the civil rights movement was getting that legislation passed. It wasn't only the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, it was also the Higher Education Act. And before the Higher Education Act was passed, most Black people couldn't go to college. All these college educated Black people we have now, we have because of the Civil Rights Movement and the passage of the Higher Education Act, which led to EOF. There were no EOF programs before 1966. In fact, there weren't any higher education program. There was only the GI Bill. If you went to war and you were lucky enough to come back home, to get back home, you could get some money for school and you could get a low interest loan, get you a house. If you were lucky, because even there, Black people were discriminated against. There was the Higher Education Act, which Adam Clayton Powell helped ferry through Congress, that in fact made it possible for so many Black people to get higher education and to get better jobs. Now, they have been at war against affirmative action programs for just about 50 years, since about 1972, since about the Bakke decision. And that, I believe, was like 1972, 73, something like that. So Black people want to go to college. Black people want to vote. Black people want a good education for their children, which includes Black history, or if not Black history.
Can I just
well, let me just I'm sorry, Chris, just let Reverend Tiller, if he has a response, because he may have to go, because this is your show. I just want, okay, go ahead.
Okay. I just want you to understand what I'm saying, because I agree with you, but I will also say this. You know, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. John Henry Clark, Houston Baker, my professor, Joseph Washington, James Cone, they all taught Black history. None of them taught critical race theory. See, we have farmed out our struggle, our message to radical whites who are actually pushing something that is really not about us. I don't need critical race theory is not synonymous with Black studies. And we need to be clear about that. We are not fighting for critical race theory. That's critical studies. That's a theory that has nothing to do with Black studies. And so we need to be clear. I don't blame the governor in Virginia, because all he was really saying, and the parents in Virginia, and that's what we said in Ocean Hill and Brownsville, that parents have to have something to say about what their children are learning. It's the Democrats' fault that Terry McAuliffe was down there saying parents had no say in their education. And this is one of those areas where we got to stop being so partisan, because in some areas we're going to agree with Republicans. We don't want people making curriculum for our children and we have no input. We can teach Black studies. We've always had Black studies. I don't believe in farming out our struggle to radical whites who are pushing their agenda and using us as a Trojan horse. Critical studies is taught in many areas. That's not synonymous with Black studies. Dr. Jeffries doesn't teach critical race theory. Dr. Clark probably never heard of it. I'm sure he heard of it. That wasn't what he taught. So that's all I'm saying. Let's be clear about what our agenda is.
And they're using critical race theory as an excuse, but it's not critical race theory that they're stopping. They're stopping teachers from teaching Black history. They're firing teachers. They're banning books. They're banning books by Martin Luther King. This ain't got nothing to do with critical race theory. That's a ruse. They don't want children to learn about Martin Luther King. Now look at the list of the books in Florida, in Virginia, in South Carolina, in North Carolina, in Arkansas. They're banning books by Black people and by Black leaders. So this thing with critical race theory is a ruse. These people who are in control of the Republican Party are antithetical to the interests of Black people, because all of this is about race. They've been bent out of shape since Barack Obama got elected, and they have been on the warpath to destroy Black political power since 2008. And what we see with the election of Trump is the epitome of that effort. And if we don't stop them, they will take us back to 19. Do you know what one of the senators in the Senate tweeted after the Dobbs decision? He said, he tweeted, I can't remember his name. He tweeted, Brown versus Board of Education next. They're going to take us back.
See, that's where you and I disagree, Larry. That's where you and I disagree. If black people in Newark, if black people in Newark,
don't recognize these people as fascists.
No, it's not about me recognizing.
The Republican Party.
No, don't go there. It's not about. I recognize.
It's the party. It's the party of fascism. It is the political arm.
That's you and I. This is where we differ in this country right now. This is where we completely differ. This is where we completely.
I know we disagree because I make no compromise with these fascists.
And this is why black people reject the voting system. This is why black people know intuitively that whites in the Democratic Party is not in their interest.
Black people voted in record numbers in 2020, the largest vote in the history of the United States of America was in 2020. More people in every demographic voted, including black people, including over 90% of black women and over 85% of black men. Black people are not rejecting voting. There's always a section of black people who do not vote. Even with the record turnout we had in 2020, there was still 100 million people that did not vote.
Why do I feel like I'm about to pop beat? I feel like I'm about to pop beat. And Chairman Hamm. Okay, so what I have to say is, Chairman Hamm, I just need everybody to let each other speak so people can understand. It's okay that we all have separate thoughts, but I need everybody to let everybody talk. Now, Hakeem asked a question, and Reverend Tiller was trying to tell you why he disagreed, and we had to mute you, so I apologize, Chairman Hamm. Hakeem, go ahead. Do you want to respond?
I got another,
but you can take the mute off. Go ahead.
I got another question.
But do you? Do we understand? Because that critical race theory, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, this is a subject that's probably taught in law school, so it's not even taught in the K through 12.
It's in one college in the United States of America. I think in Santa Barbara, California. It's a curriculum at a college that is supposed to expose systemic racism in America.
So let's simplify.
Education program.
Right, it's not Black history.
Gaslighting us.
Right. So let me just say that. So we understand that critical race theory is not Black history, but they are using it to stop us from teaching.
We say they. Who we saying? We're saying the Republicans are using critical race theory. It's not Democrats. It's Republicans are gaslighting us by taking critical race theory, which is in one place in the country, and using it as a blanket fictional movement that doesn't exist. So white people think that black people are trying to do some things that we're not trying to do.
And before you go to your next question, educators, y'all cannot be so quiet because you're in the classroom, Chris and John Austin. So when you're and really just come back with a short answer, so we can go to Hakeem's next question. And if Reverend Tiller comes back on, bring him back in. That as an educator, are you seeing that from your position that they are telling you that critical race theory is equal to Black history? Chris, Jonathan, hello.
They teach it Black.
I think for me,
the cameras.
I think for me, I did. It has something popped up yet. I think for me, there's a few things. I think number one, I don't think I'm totally with Chairman Hamm and Hakeem Green as it relates to.
You're not with them? What do you mean? You don't agree with them?
I'm fairly with them about as it relates to. I don't think there's a distinction between critical race theory is a covering term for anything Black people write or think about, period, right? Because if that were the case, there's no Toni Morrison has nothing to do with the legal structure necessarily as it relates like literature. Like The Bluest Eye is not about
I don't think that's what Hakeem said. I think Hakeem said that they're making us think that critical race theory is the same thing as Black history.
I'm saying they are, right? That for them, critical race theory is just a covering term to eliminate anything that Black people produce across the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, right, Albert Clegg talked about years ago that any discriminatory attack on one Black person is not a discriminatory attack on one Black person. It is a group attack on Black people. And functionally, there is the reason why I teach all of these same things, right? I recently was fired in the state of Texas for, making white people uncomfortable in different situations, right? And so I don't think that I don't think that there is a reality where most people can process that at a high level. And unfortunately, due to the long-standing, come here, Carter G. Woodson, I need you. The long-standing miseducation of the Negro, the average person is so enamored with social media and their own narcissism that they are not even aware that any of these things are happening. You can't go to the average Black person that I know, and this is so sad. I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. But the average Black person I know has no idea that this debate is even happening. It is only, unfortunately, the highest level thinking Black people like Reverend Tillett and Larry Hamm who even see these things as a thing.
But
the average Black person is not even aware this debate is even happening.
And we're welcoming Keesha's coming in, and we're waiting for DJ Rhino. And while we're waiting for DJ Rhino, Hakeem, what was your question?
My other question was, Jesse Jackson in 84 and in 88 ran as a Democrat, didn't he? And that was my point in terms of allyship, finding allies in spaces. And though, an entire party may not be down with my agenda, I have enough people in this big tent that I can align myself with to leverage our collective power on those who don't see it the way we see it. Where when we look at the Republican Party, we don't have those points of allyship in terms of, our key agenda. So that's where I get thrown off by Reverend Tillett and his defense of the Republican Party. And really, it's Nazism, it's fascism.
But to his defense, I can't. We do have to. But I'm just saying. But the simple thing what I heard Reverend Tillett say is that we do have to agree that there are going to be some things that we may agree with the Republican Party or a particular candidate, maybe not so much the party, a candidate.
Right.
Perhaps.
But when we're at the point where you have folks marching in the street calling for the annihilation of groups of people, there's no allyship there. I can't get down. There's no way I can co-sign Jews won't replace us in the street. Blacks won't replace it. I can't co-sign January 6th. I can't co-sign the gutting of the voting rights. I can't, there's certain things that, we might be, I'm conservative some of the ways I think, and I might agree with you over here. But, in terms of my bigger agenda, my bigger platform, I'm a humanist, so I have to relate to people as human beings before I can relate to people in terms of dollars and cents.
Or as he spoke as a woman, and as a woman, I may say when it becomes a personal decision for Roe versus Wade, I may believe this way, but I'm not going to make that decision for a whole room of women. So when I go to vote, I want to leave that opportunity for everybody to make their own decision. Right. Because my personal belief should not impact what you do personally.
And they talk out of both sides of their mouth, because in one sense they're talking about their anti-big government, but when you get down to the personal choice of the individual to govern their own body, when they're against that, then they're for big government stopping the individual making an individual choice. So you kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth there. It's hypocritical, and they do that a lot.
And I think that's what Congressman Payne reminds us often, because they have, and Reverend Tillett said that they've been methodically on this Roe versus Wade to the point they have reached some success regarding it. But as a member of the Democratic Party, we have these big issues, but it seems that if you have 20 issues, it should make your tent more successful, and that has not worked for us. And I guess we have to pose, why is that not working for us?
just correct me if I'm wrong, but we just passed a bunch of bills and made them law that have a positive effect on a lot of these Big Ten issues. So the Democrats, in a lot of ways, have been very successful.
Helpful.
Right.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, AOC asked for $8 trillion. Biden wanted 3.5. We got $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, which was historic. That's successful.
Right. Exactly. Right.
All the other for the veterans, that bill, that's a success.
Right.
This college student loan reform, we need to go further, but that's a success relative to what the Republicans would have us have. It's phenomenal. We're getting that, and it's just where the Democrats are losing is announcing these big successes to show the American people.
We're telling their story.
Big tent where you have allies, and then your allyship can leverage collective power for your own personal benefit. We need to see that translate better.
And how do you and Chairman, I believe you started to say there was the $10,000, but it should be more. But how do we get the Democrats to see that $10,000 was still a success? Chairman?
The $10,000 is a success because that's going to affect 20 million people. The people who are on Pell Grants, that's 20 million. But the problem is there's 23 million other people that's not going to help. The reason Biden did the student loan forgiveness initiative was because he was pressured to do so. In fact, I would take it back to 2016 because the issue of student loans was raised by Bernie Sanders. The abolition of student debt was raised by Bernie Sanders in 2016. And a lot of the other Democratic candidates weren't down with that. Maybe Elizabeth Warren was. By 2020, more of them were talking about partial debt forgiveness. And then after Biden after Biden won the primary, he was saying he was going to abolish student debt and make community college and public colleges free. Now, he didn't do that. And I would say he probably didn't do that because there's not a big enough majority in the Senate, to support that with legislation, to get legislation through on that. So the bottom line is the student debt forgiveness was done because there was a movement of students and young people and other people who called for the abolition of student debt.
Now, Chairman,
so the way we campaign to make that happen, we have to continue to campaign until all student debt is eliminated.
That's fair.
So, now hold that point right there. I was just gonna say, but pencil in the second Friday of October, because Chairman Hamm and Reverend Tillard and Hakeem, and come back and join us because we're going to be talking about civics in October and give it a bigger conversation of engagement. Go ahead, Jonathan.
And one thing I just want to bring in, we have Keesha Eure here, and I just want to make sure we I just want to shift the subject a little bit. Right. We've got Keesha Eure, we've got Hakeem Green, and I know that they just finished this 24 hours of peace. We've been talking about a lot of stuff in terms of politics, and I think that the 24 hours of peace was amazing because, like, the concept of it, what they've been doing year after year, having hip hop artists really is trying to culture, because it's like, here's another layer of where politics and arts go together. Keesha Eure, welcome to the show. Hakeem Green, both of you, tell us about the app. Like, you had 24 hours of peace that you've done for multiple years. For Faith Evans, a bunch of other local artists. What was it like this year? And welcome to the show, Keesha.
Thank you for having me. All politics are local. All politics are local. Always glad to be here. I'll let Hakeem Green start off. I know he's been talking the political talk, but we'll shift the conversation. He has been doing the 24 hours of peace. This is the 11th year. And so we can certainly let him start off by talking about its original mission and vision, and how we ultimately begin to work together on it.
Well, I'm going to actually pass it back to you, Director, because, ooh, ladies first. Ladies first. Ooh, ladies first. Ladies first.
Well, we have been, doing work together and trying to find different ways to address violence and crime in our communities, in terms of art, culture, just different ways. And so we've been doing this work in terms of with the artists and different things, from being on Clinton Avenue to Lyons Avenue to downtown to now, shifting it to the location that we have it at now. And before, like, we, know when we had 24 hours of peace, just with like a wiener wagon stage and some chairs outside and a few people, to now it has grown tremendously to, make a name for itself in terms of showing people that we can bring people together in a way that we can have no violence, but artists being able to give messages around peace, love, hope, kindness, whatever those messages are. And last year was my first time truly being a part of it and helping with the organizing and planning. And we had an amazing time last year downtown Newark, where the people were having a great time. The energy was high. The artists that we had came out and had a good time. The vendors, were able to, make money. The resources that we had out there for the people. And so ultimately, that's what we want to see happen. And so this year when I spoke on stage, we had it on Springfield Avenue and Bergen, going up to Littleton and Blum, up by Applebee's and the movie theater and Home Depot. And I can truly say that I didn't see the vision this year in terms of location, because I just thought that downtown was just really good in terms of being a centralized location where people felt safe and people would come. But it has always been the vision to keep it in the neighborhood and have the neighborhood people come out and see it, like in a number blocks or, places that people don't always feel safe, and for us to show unity and that it can be anywhere in the city. But if the mission, the vision is what it is, then it can happen and be successful. And so we had, Friday night is always the night for older people. For the most part, it's like our old school night.
The wisdom of the community.
The wisdom of the community. And the second day is always our youth and for our young people. And so ultimately catering to everyone. Our seniors, we had a senior breakfast this year with gospel music. And ultimately just trying to be intergenerational, right? Where we get to bring everybody together and the messages are universal. We have opening ceremony with drumming and culture, right? So culture is at the center of everything that we do. The libation, that Brother Bashir spoke, Sharif, started us off with Brick City Peace Collective. Then I came on. And then ultimately last year I introduced the mayor, but this year it wasn't in that, same vein, but the mayor gives his message and then the artists give their messages. And our young people, and we had giveaways. And so it's just all inclusive. The energy was high. We had thousands of people, but we were able to bring out the neighborhood, right? This is our people who are in the mix, right? Mm-hmm. Our people who are probably our shooters, our carjackers, our people who are doing things, right? We were able to bring them out. And that's ultimately the goal, for them to see that we can have peace in our community. We can have a whole weekend, or we can have days where no shootings happen or people are not victimized. And when you bring people together and have something for them, we are able to see the collective work that we can do together. And so we claim victory, right? This was a victory when we see that other cities like Philadelphia and Chicago had 20, 30, 40, 50 shootings over their Labor Day weekend. And we didn't experience that.
During 24 hours of peace on Labor Day weekend, where everybody's out, they're partying. So you're saying in those 24 hours on that weekend, violence in Newark was significantly lower than in other comparable cities?
Absolutely. On Friday, I do know that I got notifications on 2 shooting incidents, but no one was hit, right? It was property. Um, and on Saturday, I didn't get a notification. On Sunday, didn't get a notification. But on Monday, I do know that there were two people who were shot, females. But to see the significant trick, like where it was lower. I saw the stats that said Philly had several shootings and homicides in Chicago. Other cities had double-digit numbers, and we didn't experience that. And so while we always hope that it's zero and nobody gets hurt and nobody gets affected, we will claim and take the victories that we had thousands of people together in one location, and we didn't have any incidents in the location that we were at either. And so, yes, we are claiming a victory. We're going to tell our own story. We're going to have our narrative around the fact that we had a peaceful weekend for Labor Day weekend.
So, Director Dieury, I remember leaving work, and it was in a Rite Aid on 12th and Bergen, and a mother was like, "I'm trying to get home. Something's going on in my backyard." Like, "Where do you live?" And she lived right there, and she knew something great was going on, but she didn't know exactly what was going on. And then at the top of the show, we asked the first guest, Brother Dumas, who is he listening to? He said, "I'm gonna shout out Queen Latifah because I believe she was just in our neighborhood." So people felt it. They may not have known why, but they knew something great was going on. So those are 2 positive reports I have for you.
Certainly, and we'll take the positive reports. We had people that were putting out the flyers. So everywhere I went, I saw the flyers. But I know that, we have to do a greater job with getting the messaging out, because people who are not on social media and things like that, who don't know. But now I think that the word is out that this is the place to be. This is the thing to be at. And if you're not there, then you're missing something. Our vendors sold out of all of their food. The movie theater sold 1,000 movie tickets, right? And so the businesses were able to benefit. We had the local stores that were able to benefit. And so we had parking because we know that parking is never, available. So people were able to park in Home Depot parking lot, Applebee's parking lot, the school parking lot. So parking was even available. So I would certainly say that we are claiming victory on this, and that and that we
somebody wants your attention. Is it we stealing somebody's time?
Right here. And
so
Aww.
let's see baby again.
And so there was some criticisms, and we'll talk about some of those, right, around the smoking and drinking and things like that. But ultimately, the major mission was for there to be no violence. And so some people, felt.
You made mention in the beginning you had this little stage. So do you remember, you or Hakeem, remember your numbers from year 1 to last weekend? Do you remember the numbers? Like, what were your numbers in year 1, and what were your numbers even if you had just had last year's numbers in terms of people attending?
So year 1, was probably like a few hundred. Year 2, a few hundred. Year 3, we got probably 600-700 people. Year 4 was our breakout year, and that was probably 1,500, 2,000. Same thing with 2005, 2006. When we got to Broaden Market in 2016, we saw like 3,000, 4,000. Last year, Broad Market, it was between 5,000 and 7,000. This year, we reached 10,000, 10K.
Nice.
And it was all. I think the job that we did last year really set the stage for how big this year was. Along with the artists we had booked this year, we had some phenomenal talent. Everybody from Rowdy Rebel, Fabulous, of course, CL Smooth, Queen Latifah hosting. DJ Quad bringing out Melba Moore, that was huge. Fabio Foreign, G Herbo, Too Rare. Too Rare is a TikTok sensation, millions of followers. It just we gave young people the people that they wanted to see, the artists that they wanted to see. Now There was some, I guess, pushback on the messaging of some of our artists this year, but we felt it important to reach the folks who most need the message. So we're talking peace, love, unity, safety, having fun. We had to make sure that the folks who were responsible for a lot of the violence with it was there to get other messaging, you know, and seeing a different, feeling a different energy of peace, love, unity, safety, having fun. And you can tell that it resonated through the 10,000 people. You could tell that.
Can you talk more about that? Because like you're saying that there are some artists who are there who are not necessarily like was it? Do you mean that their message, some of the younger artists, their message wasn't necessarily peace and love, but they were in this larger mix?
Yeah.
How was that decision made in terms of having people who might have had counter message that was very counter to the stuff that you've done?
Right. Well, we decided that one, we needed to address these artists before 24 hours apiece. So we had a Zoom call, brought on Fab, Rowdy Rebel, Sue Rare, Fabio Foreign, and we talked about the messaging and how they present themselves and what we were trying to push. Now we know they're hit records because of mainstream media and what mainstream media is pushing. These artists' hit records tend to be contrary to the message of 24 hours apiece. And we want our audience to be entertained. We want them to be satisfied. You know, I got my biggest record is about smoking weed. When I show up to perform, you want me to sing a song about smoking weed. How do you navigate that messaging? So that was my responsibility to segue in between artists to keep people reminded of the messaging: peace, love, unity, safety, having fun. We're reminding folks that a lot of the music and entertainment that we're celebrating is celebrating our murder and death. So it's things that I said in between just to drive the point home. We don't want to beat people in the head. We don't want to turn people off. We want people to feel welcome and engaged and like they can have a good time, but at the same time not losing the point of why we're doing this. And you know, I don't think that was lost. I heard, I don't know if Keesha told me or someone told me that during that 24 hours in that particular neighborhood, which is one of the hottest neighborhoods in Newark, New Jersey, there was no violence during the course of 24 hours apiece in that neighborhood. Like, that's amazing. And then when I was going back to the hotel Friday night, you know, I came off the stage, walked around backstage, had to get my car at Applebee's, walked through the crowd, and you know, Springfield Avenue in Littleton. And it looked like Springfield Avenue in Littleton. But the respect, the love, the energy was like they embraced me. They made me feel comfortable. They made me feel welcome. They made me feel like I wasn't out of place, even though the messaging I'm carrying may seem out of place for that neighborhood. They were totally open to it, and they saw what we were doing. They supported it. It was a win.
And Hakeem, so how you and Keesha, you said in the beginning at first you didn't see the vision, but then you did at some point when it was moved from Broad Market to over by Springfield and Littleton in that area. How do you? So will you be in the same area next year, or that depends on how did you choose this decision, this area? What was the fact? What made you choose this area this year?
So it was based on truly the mayor, right? And so the mayor's office makes decisions. Our chief of staff, Amiri Baraka, makes decisions. And ultimately, probably coming off of the height of the campaign and probably seeing the need of where things needed, where the need was. South Ward, West Ward, you know, has like the real need. We looking at our hot spots. And really just looking at where we need to concentrate our efforts. And so that was a huge, you know, risk that we took in terms of moving it to say we're going back into the neighborhoods. And so I was thinking from a place of downtown, central to everything. People want to come from all the wards, and it's just central. So we go into the north, into the South Ward or the West Ward. We know that those are the two areas that has the most crime and violence, and people may not feel as safe and comfortable coming to those neighborhoods. So it was ultimately made by the mayor and the chief of staff made the decision to move the location based on the need and based on what the data and the hot spots say the needs are.
And then after that, I'm sorry, Hakeem, go ahead. I was just the response of the community. Did they love it?
Well, to that point, Donna, and to piggyback off of what director said, I thought that was an excellent decision by the mayor and the chief to put it there because it served the people who needed the messaging the most. And it makes those people feel like we care about them. We're thinking about them. This is for you specifically. This is not something where, yeah, it's downtown. You get there, but you have no ownership of it. This is something that community can own, the fact that 24 Hours Apiece 2022 was 10,000 people, was the biggest to date, and was totally successful. That specific community can claim and own that. Of course, all of Newark can, but for it to come from that neighborhood, I think that was tremendous, and I appreciate the turnout. Hello, mic check 1 2 1 2.
Everybody there? Who's
Yeah,
there?
I'll just just for a brief.
Donna stepped away. That's what that was.
Just for a brief history of 24 Hours Apiece. It was inspired by a few different things. One, self-destruction, stop the violence movement, KRS-One, of course. But watching the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition do the work for 5.5 years straight, protesting violence and crime in our community, committed by us. Now they say, oh, Black people never protest Black on Black crime, whatever that is. They always protesting police brutality. When you going to protest? Well, I watched Newark Anti-Violence Coalition do it for 5.5 years straight, every Wednesday, rain, sleet, snow, hail. And it was like, okay, how can we add on to that? How can we make the engagement one where the community welcomes it and wants to participate and wants to get down with it? And we know, Mary Baraka Sr., he taught us about arts and culture and how to use that as a weapon. So it just made sense to bring hip hop out on the block. And then we can create a platform for the folks doing the real work: Office of Violence Prevention, Trauma Recovery, Brick City Peace Collective, Newark Community Street Team, Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, etc. That's the real work. That's the most important part of 24 Hours Apiece. It's not what's going on stage, but it's the activism and the engagement going on the ground while 24 Hours Apiece is going on. So that's why we do what we do.
And Keesha, or Hakeem, I talked about early how you talk about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Just to go off subject a little bit, but it's still on subject. Back to school down in Texas in Uvalde, where they had that situation. In the morning when I left for work, they were like, we're just going back to school. We're going to just do it. We just got to get started. By afternoon, the news reports were that the kids were calling home like, Mommy, come get me. Daddy, come get me. So trauma, now think about how you talk about trauma is real. And for whatever reason, I don't know, that this community just thought that they were really able to rebound and just go forward. With that being said, and then the choices you made with this, did you have any personal interactions where somebody said, thank you, tonight I was going to do something, or I know you've seen the numbers, but did you have any personal, conversations based on this, the continuation of this program and the success of this program?
So for me personally, I did not, but there was a part in the show where I think it was G Herbo had performed, and I was like, oh no, this messaging is crazy. I'm like, you got to say something, positive. And then at the end of his performance, Hakeem, and had said to the audience, how many of y'all have experienced or been affected by violence, right? And all of the hands went up. And you can see from going all the way back how many people have been affected, how many people have had a friend, mother, father, somebody shot, or affected by violence. And to see how many people was affected just was able to show that you're not here alone, right? You're not in this alone. And we were able to kind of send that message. And then when I spoke, I talked to them about the resources that the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery is able to give people who experience stress, depression, being overwhelmed, people who've been shot, stabbed, robbed, anything has happened to them, and talking about the root causes. And that ultimately we are here. These tables are out here because we have resources. The mayor has given us resources. So I was stressing the resources, and I made sure that we had representatives there to be able to help people and tell them, go to these tables. Everybody's not selling something. Some people are here with real information to be able to help you. And I was like really adamant in my messaging when I spoke around, I need everybody to be quiet because this is important. We have an investment. We have a $20 million investment in public health. Violence is a public health issue. And we really need to tap into these resources. If you are experiencing addiction, if you're experiencing depression, if you're experiencing anything, you need to hear this message and you need to go get some help. So my message was really that when I spoke, versus, like the artists and things like that. So I was really trying to stress the mental health component and that there is help out there and that you can ask for help. And I had my social workers there as well in the back, but I sent them out into the audience to talk to people and engage the people, and ask them, have you ever experienced violence? Have you ever been a victim of violence? Well, we have a table over here. And so I was intentional around that, making sure those messages was heard around trauma and that trauma is a real place and that we have a whole community affected by trauma. And our office and our real mission here is to provide hope and healing. So I did put my messaging out.
Yeah,
I
I didn't.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't really get a chance. One of the downsides of this past year is I didn't really get a chance to go out and engage with the people like I usually do. Like I usually get off the stage, I'll go down the street and I'll walk around, I'll party with the people. I didn't really get a chance to do that because of how the stage was set up and the walk and the whole 9 yards. So, it is what it is. But what Sister Keesha described in terms of the messaging, G Herbo, his music is one of the biggest artists in the world right now. Can't deny his impact on popular culture. But contrary to 24 Hours of Peace, I had to make that bridge. So in asking how many people were affected by gun violence, and you see literally, like Keesha said, all these hands go up all the way back. Thousands of people raised their hands. And then I said, how many people celebrated when you lost that person, and everybody put their hand down. And it was like a quiet hush, like nobody said anything. So that was the realization of how serious violence is in our community and how we normalize it through the music, how we embrace our own destruction. We find things funny that aren't really funny. We traumatize each other and pass around, this trauma that people end up carrying for years. It stunts their growth. It stunts their decision making. It puts people in a position to relive a traumatic situation years later in their life. And we don't think about those things when we're in our youth and we're going through things and we laugh at things and we make light of things. So it's that type of conversation I think that we have to get on a ground level outside of a concert setting, where we can get young folks to really embrace the idea of trauma is not normal. Like right is right, wrong is wrong. Let's not make wrong right. And how do we do that? And there's some very specific ways we can do it. I just want to see us tap into that work. Like I say, I'm the co-founder, creator of 24 Hours of Peace. It's a great day for me as an artist, as a producer, all of that. But the real work is going on every other day other than 24 Hours of Peace. So we want to support those activities a little more.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that like what you said just now was wildly brilliant, and like just the asking the question in the context and getting people to think about the things that are being actually said, right? Like I thought that was like the way you described that just now, man. That was one of those things that always needs to be done and done more. I talked to Director Dieury last week a little bit about Meet the Press came on last week, and they did an entire program that was dedicated to policing, right? And they had people talking about police, and they were just, and they had the only person they had that dealt with public health was a medical examiner. And I was like, this conversation seems to be so hollow because there are so many people who are doing work on the ground that deals with anti-violence, that deals with violence reduction, and you don't see it in popular culture. You don't see it in popular media. So the idea of this and putting that together, and Keesha and Director Dieury, what you were talking about, is also just trying to put that in the popular culture. How do we do that more going forward? How do we talk about the anti-violence programs, the street teams, the interrupters in Chicago, the people who are in Patterson who are going to hospitals, the people who are doing actual violence reduction, and how do we get them into the mainstream of this conversation on policing and public safety in ways that just aren't there right now?
So ultimately, we have to, again, tell our own stories and our own narratives. So we're going to certainly write this story about 24 hours of peace. But to your point, we are not seen as public safety folks, right? So people still only feel safe with police. People only still give credit to law enforcement when, crime and violence go down, because people don't see us as the credible messengers, as the first responders. And so we have to show up more, and we have to tell the stories more. We have to, write more. We have to be more visible. So I think the visibility around it. So when they have these forums and they have these panels, then the attitude has to be nothing about us without us, right? And so we are at the center of this work, right? And so we have to now push the button and push the staple. So for us in the city of Newark, we have a public safety director, but I am the community-based public safety person, right? We have a complement, and really showing that that exists. And so, like you said, we have a Patterson Healing Collective, a Jersey City Anti-Violence Coalition, a Trenton Street team. We have all the way down Camden, Atlantic City, statewide. So we have partners, we have people who are doing this work, who are being funded to do this work. And so we have to come together more collectively. We have to tell our stories. We have to do newsletters. We have to put pictures out, and just really be more visible to say we are not going to continue to be secondary to law enforcement. You're not going to continue to make us seem like we're not effective in this work, because the truth of the matter is when they show up, we show up. When they need us, or we at the scenes, and we at the hospitals, and we at the funerals, and we're doing mediation. I just started doing safe surrenders. I did about 4 in the last 3 weeks, right? So we're safe surrendering people. We are intricate in the lives of people to help them feel safe. Everyone don't trust law enforcement. We are not against law enforcement, but we are ultimately public safety. We are a part of that. And so we have to start to be viable in that, and writing the stories and pushing it. So that piece that you told me about, I certainly want to write to them and say, when y'all do your next segment, that y'all have to have some people like us as part of that. When y'all do your next segment, you can't tell the story about public safety without us being present, because it's not credible. And we're not going to continue to allow you to take all the credit for the work. And so that's the attitude. That's the activism and the social justice piece that we have to continue to push and change the minds of our people so that they can see us as a part of public safety.
Thank you. I mean, as we're ending this program, as we're getting to the last 2 minutes, we definitely want to thank all the guests that we had on tonight. Super big ups to Donna for holding it down, and to Chris Randall for holding it down all the way from the beginning of the program to the end of it. And we'll let them take us out with the question, because, who you're rocking with. I know that Hakeem dropped a new album that he should talk about a little bit. And as we wrap up in this last minute, that whole question about who you're talking to. So Donna and Chris Randall, take us home and get the hip hop that our guests are listening to.
So, I'll just say that I want to thank our guests who were on earlier. Brother Dumas, Reverend Tiller was with us for the vote, and just want to congratulate him on his race. Although he was not the victor, he stood up and he showed up, and he participated. And I want to remind everybody that September 15th is International Day of Democracy.
I'm sorry.
Please be engaged. And just
I was like, I shouted out Chris Randall for holding it down, and he just still got the camera on me. I'm like, Chris, what's going on, man?
Oh, okay. And just remember, September 15th is International Day of Democracy, and you have to be engaged in this process. We'll put the events up on All Politics Local page, and then, as always, thank you, Keesha, Director Eure, I apologize, and Hakeem for being here. But you guys just had an event last week, so I know you're just coming off of that whole year of planning and already getting ready for next year, successful program. So who are you listening to, individual or a group, that inspired you to get through the days, to do the work that you do, and to turn out the successful events that you do? Keesha first, because it said ladies
Okay,
first.
so I'll go first, and I'll say, so my office just produced the album, so I'll certainly say it's called The Other Side of Newark. So the Office of Violence Prevention, Mayor Raz Baraka with Dupree Kelly, Brick City Peace Collective. So we just put an album. So we're doing an album. It's finished. We will be putting it out probably this month. It should be dropping. It's with our local artists to give positive messages. So that's who I'm listening to these days. It's about 5 or 6 artists, singers, rappers, and the album is called The Other Side of Newark. So that's what we're listening to. When it drops, we will invite everyone to the listening party.
Okay. Hakeem?
Right now, to get inspired for 24 hours apiece, all I was listening to was Hakeem Green. That Aubrey album is fire, entirely produced by Ron Lawrence. Features
I need that, bro.
One, Carl Thomas, G. Simone, Freeway, CeeLo Green, Do It All Kelly, Amiri Baraka Jr.
I need that.
Fire.
Need that.
Fire. I got this joint called Real Hip Hop for the People that was specifically made to talk about 24 hours apiece and Team Baraka and how to use real hip hop for the people. And it's fire, 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 fire. Chris Randall, I just sent it to you. You got it on your phone.
And Chris, share it with the group. So share it with us as well, Chris.
Hit me off, man. Hit me off.
That's right.
Hey, listen, the first one always free.
I got you right now.
I just wanted to say I'm not going to look in Director Eure's direction. I'm not talking to her. I'm just saying Chinua Achebe says that until the lions have no historians, there's a reality where we have to write about our own reality. Like long after the 24 hours apiece of 2022 is over, in 50 years, there's going to be people who are struggling to solve questions of violence because the structures of institutional racism and capitalism will still probably exist. And so what's going to happen is you're going to be looking to, it's going to be a whole nother generation trying to figure out how they do that. And what we're going to need is a historical framework for how that worked and how it worked in the past. And, I'm not looking at Director Eure because I wouldn't do that. But oftentimes our greatest warriors don't publish. I'm not looking at Larry Hamm either because that would be wrong, and that would just be disrespectful. But, oftentimes we don't do that. And I think that, I've yelled at DJ Rhino about this. I've yelled at certain other people about this. I'm going to probably end up having to cuss out Hakeem Green because I think that until we begin to write and publish about how things actually went, then what happens is, as the poet said, now that he's safely dead about Dr. King, people are going to be rewriting history and thinking about things in a totally different way, in a way that they didn't happen. And I think, unfortunately, we have not embraced how important publishing is and writing down our own histories and our own stories is to the legacies of our radical movements. And I think, to be honest with you, the revolutionary impact of something like 24 hours apiece won't actually be felt until 50 years from now. Right? We are looking back at the Gary Convention and saying, wow, how amazing was that?
Right. It was the example, right?
Exactly.
So now 24 hours apiece is an example. I was listening to Keesha, and I saw her post this before on her IG page about how, all cities around the country were in turmoil when during Labor Day weekend. You know what I'm saying? There was violence, there was shootings, there were killings, there were injuries, and we didn't have that in Newark for Labor Day weekend. And so I always look at what's going on in Newark as the example that other cities can take. You know what I mean?
That's right. We've done it one. We got the example of water that's already a national model. 24 hours apiece may be the next national model. So,
and just for the record, you know, as a person who is in a city now that is struggling with a water crisis in Baltimore, the functional reality of what the city of Newark pulled off with the water crisis can never be overstated. The fact that you resolve that issue with that in that quick of a time, with no cost to the residents, that's what real revolution looks like, right?
Right.
And oftentimes we have romanticized revolution as only being things with guns and Haitian Revolution, et cetera, and props to those movements. But when you can talk about people being able to do the mundane things peacefully, like going to get a glass of water out the tap, those are the real things that have to be monumentalized. You know, I've been yelling at Jonathan Austin. You got to write about your teaching methodology. That's got to be something that people can go back and look to, right? So at the end of the day, like, I think that we have to be able to, you know, accurately think about the world as it related to how it really happened. Because I'm teaching students right now in Newark who don't know who Amiri Baraka is, and whose fault is that? Right. And so until we begin to really write our stories and monumentalize our legacies and say who our real heroes are, whether it's in hip hop, whether it's in literature, whether it's in politics, right? Until we can do that, we're going to continue to be victimized, because every time we have a liberatory movement, the reactionary forces are coming to undo that. And most of the time they do it in literature first.
and we're over time, but we just want to give Chairman Hamm the last word, because we forgot to say thank you, and take us out. Go ahead, Chairman. And I want you to think that what he said, because you just kind of finished where he said muddy water is coming out of the faucet in Mississippi, but because we have solutions here in Newark, it's not happening here. Chairman Hamm, take us out.
Well, I think
I'm sorry, Rhino. Did you want to say something before him? I apologize. I'm sorry.
Well, all I gotta say is I'm back on tomorrow, Twitch, 3 p.m. The shake up. But go ahead, Chairman.
Thank you. Hakeem, I want your album, man. I want to listen to it. Where can I get it?
The first one is always free. Yesterday's price is not today's price. No, I'll text it to you, Chairman. I'm gonna text it to you as soon as we get off.
All right. And Chris, you cited Chinua Achebe, who wrote that book, Things Fall Apart. And he opens it with that quote. It's actually a couple of lines from a poem by Yeats, I think it is. Things fall apart and the center cannot hold. And I think that describes the situation that we're faced with today. And I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you for joining us at All Politics Are Local. We'll see you next Friday. Remember, All Politics Are Local, number one.
Number one.
Can't hear you.
What happened?
John
right.
did.
We are out. We are ending it, right? So from where we're still at science, we're getting ready to leave. So thanks for everyone for this weekend.
Peace.